of the most dangerous foods on planet Earth, wheat, barley, rye, and oats, contain gluten. Gluten is a protein. Protein is a long chain of amino acids. It's like a string of pearls. And it's the stomach's job to break that string of pearls, liberate the individual amino acids, which are essential nutrients. But the chemical bonds which hold the amino acids of gluten together are really, really difficult for most people's stomach acid to break. If you eat a whole wheat sandwich, you chew it up, you swallow it, it goes down into your stomach, and the acid in your stomach tries to break the string of pearls of the protein and the gluten, but it can't do it. Now, instead of individual amino acids tumbling through the small intestine, which is the next stage of digestion, you get these big, complicated architectural strings of proteins, undigested protein. Your small intestine's job is to absorb the nutrients that your stomach has just turned into liquid into the bloodstream. And your small intestine does that through tiny tissue called villi. They're like octopus arms. The job of the villi is to grab onto a nutrient and bring it into the bloodstream, right? Well, when the villi attempts to grab onto an individual amino acid, no problemo. But when the villi attempts to grab onto a long, complicated chain of unbroken amino acids, they become destroyed or they become inflamed. Now, it's the villi's job to absorb nutrients, which leads to one of life's greatest ironies. The more whole grains you eat, the harder it is for your body to absorb the nutrients that your stomach just digested. Not only are the foods minerally deficient because the soils are minerally deficient, but your body's ability to absorb what little nutrition there is in the food is extremely compromised because you listened to General Mills, Procter & Gamble, Monsanto, and the people that make the food. It's a bad idea to let the people who make the food give you advice about what food to eat. My recommendation for everybody 100% across the board, stop eating these foods completely for 4 weeks in a row, 28 days. Then on day 29, eat a lot of gluten. Have pancakes for breakfast, have a sandwich for lunch, have cookies and crackers, have pasta for dinner, and see how you feel. And as God is my witness, if you make it to lunch without something bad happening, I'll eat my hat. This is one of the most overlooked net negative health things in the country right now. This is a deadly combination of not enough minerals in the food, period, and then interrupting your body's ability to absorb what little nutrients there are. And this is why chronic diseases are accelerating. Autism, right? We believe autism is caused by bad nutrition in the blood of the pregnant mother. As the fetus is developing, it needs raw materials to make a brain, make a heart, make a liver, make a kidney. You can't make that out of pixie dust and air. The body needs 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 essential fatty acids. But they're not in the blood of the mother because she's eating whole wheat cereal and skim milk and margarine and is avoiding salt like the plague. From the proper perspective, with all of the data points, it all starts to make sense. But because the MDs are trained in an old-fashioned, outdated, archaic, dangerous understanding of the human body, they completely miss all of the most important things. Their job, again, is not to fix the problem. You can't fix a nutrient deficiency disease with a drug. You can manage it, which is better than suffering from the disease, I guess. But it's better, don't you think, especially in the United States of America, to try to get to the root cause of what's causing the problem and fix it?
No, the human body's designed to heal itself. So then the million-dollar question is, why are so many people sick? I believe that there's only one thing that has the ability to heal us, and that is the body itself. So the human body has an inbuilt ability to heal itself. Well, if that is true, why are so many people sick? Because the people sick, they're very sick. I was shown yesterday that a huge big hospital has just been built on the island of Bermuda. Do you think that'll fix everything? No, it actually doesn't. And I know that every doctor and every nurse in that hospital loves these meetings. Because if everyone adhered to the principles you're learning here this week, less people will have to go to that hospital. Is that right? And we can actually keep that hospital for people who are in accidents and break their legs and half chop their arms off and etc., etc., etc. There is a place for surgery. There is a place for medicine. But really, most people should go through their whole life never having a medicine or ever even having to go there. Right? And who wants to go there? No. Hurts, doesn't it? Hurts when you get sick. It hurts when you break something. I'd like to look at the two main theories for the cause of disease in medicine today. I'd like to look at those two theories, and I'd like to assess those theories, and I'd like to have a look at their true role in the running of the human body, the working of the human body, the healing of the human body. Because to know how the human body heals, we need to know something about how it works. Is that right? That's right. And to know how it works, we've got to go to the CBD. Do you know where the central business district of the human body is? The inside workings of the cell. Do you know that Darwin's theory rested on what would happen when they found out about the inside workings of the cell? And we know about the inside workings of the cell. And you know, the inside workings of the cell disprove Darwin's theory. In fact, it was 1953, it made headlines in the newspaper. The headlines in the newspaper stated that the secret of life had been discovered. You see, two scientists, Watson and Crookes, have been able to unravel the DNA. What's the DNA? The DNA is the genetic code that is inside the nucleus of every cell in the body, except the red blood cell. You see, the blood is the carrier of nutrients to the CBD. It's the carrier of oxygen to the CBD. It's the carrier of water to the CBD. It's the carrier away of waste from the CBD. And it's the bone marrow that makes your red blood cells. Now, every other cell has the ability to remake itself, and it remakes itself according to the pattern or the formula that's inside that DNA. And the reason why the headline said secret of life had been discovered, because they thought when they understood the DNA, then they would know the cause of disease, and then they'd be able to heal all diseases. That's 64 years ago. Have we healed all diseases? Are we any closer? I'd like to suggest that we're no closer, especially when the hospitals are getting bigger. Yeah. So something else arose when Watson and Crookes had been able to unravel the DNA. You see, that DNA they were able to pull out. And I'm sure we've all seen pictures of it. 23 chromosomes from our mother, 23 chromosomes from our father. A lot of information in this DNA. In fact, one writer said that if you put all the information on that DNA and put it into paperback books and stack them up on top of each other, they'd go to the moon and back quite a few times. I can hardly get my mind around that one. All curled up in the DNA. Incredible. In Psalm 139, the psalmist says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And that psalmist knows what I've just told you. That's right. I love these laws. Florence Nightingale called them the laws of nursing. Dr. Jackson from New York in the mid-1800s called them laws of life. They're often called the laws of health, the 8 principles, the 8 doctors. And the first doctor is pure air. So we should be having pure air because those cells need that oxygen. So again, make sure the air that you're breathing is top quality. It's been a little cold here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I still have my windows open every night. I make sure that I'm warm in my bed, but I'm breathing fresh air. Many people wake up tired because they're not breathing in the fresh air while they sleep. The most powerful way to oxygenate the body is exercise. So this is another law. Exercise. Take time every day to exercise. Even just walking round the block, that can be a good start. And when you get stronger, as your heart gets stronger, your muscles get stronger, your lungs start to take in more oxygen, you can go further for less time. Sunshine. Sunshine's not the enemy in the sky, it's the doctor in the sky. We need to visit that doctor every day. There was no sunshine here yesterday, but even being outside, you are getting a little bit of sunshine through those clouds. Yes, you can overdo this, doctor, And if you've got milky skin, I heard my skin called that recently, if you've got white skin, you need to be careful. So if I'm going out in the sun, I'll just be out there with no covering for maybe 15 minutes, and then I've got to put the hat on and the long sleeve shirt. But the darker the skin, the more sunshine you need. The very dark skinned people need about 10 times the sun that I need. That sunshine is vital for us to be able to get our vitamin D. And our vitamin D is essential for the assimilation of calcium, your strong bones. In fact, I was watching a presentation by one doctor he specialized in pathology. He said he found that every patient he had with COVID had a vitamin D deficiency. We need to be getting outside and getting that sunshine. So make sure you visit that sunshine every day. The next law is temperance. Temperance means not taking anything into the body that will harm it, and taking in moderation the good things. All good things should be done in moderation, but there are some things that should never go in. Refined sugar, caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, chemicals, herbicides, insecticides, mold, and be very cautious of that electromagnetic field, your exposure to it. The next law is rest. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his best-selling book, Why We Sleep, he says 8 hours, not negotiable. And the early hours are very important. So you've got a choice there. I thank God for the choices. You can go 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. You can go 9 to 5. That's probably my favorite. Or at a stretch, you could go 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Not negotiable. Those little surgeons that I explained before that have quite a job to do in your body and in your brain while you sleep. Let them have time to do the recovery, the regeneration, and the restoration that is so vital for the proper functioning of our brain and our body in those hours. The next one is proper diet. The Garden of Eden diet tells us that we should be having a high fiber diet. We should be having our proteins every day, your legumes, nuts and seeds, some whole grains, but also we should be having the nuts and seeds for our fats, maybe a little coconut oil, olive oil. We'll talk about those oils a bit more in another presentation. If you want to know about them right now, you can go and watch my lecture called Fantastic Fats on YouTube. We also need fibre, so our fibre comes in our fruits and our vegetables. The next law is water. Our body needs hydration. We lose about 2.5 quarts a day, and that 2.5 quarts must be replaced. 2 quarts can come in the form of pure water. The other half can come in as we eat our fruits, our vegetables, maybe herb teas, maybe vegetable juice. So proper diet is important because the body cannot function, it cannot repair, and it cannot heal if it doesn't have nourishment. Nourishment is important, but water is also important because our digestive enzymes are made from water. So it's not only important to eat nourishing food, it's also important to drink water, but not with our meals. We should be drinking water between our meals. We should be stopping the water half an hour before the meal and resume the water about an hour and a half after the meal. That will allow our digestive juices to remain nice and acidic, because it's only in a very acidic environment in our stomach that our proteins can be broken down. And if you have a glass of water half an hour before the meal, the first thing it will do is thicken that mucosa wall that lines the stomach to protect the stomach against the acid environment. The 8th law, the final law, but the best law, is trust in divine power. Trust that God has given you a body with an inbuilt ability to heal itself. He knows what he's doing. He gave us the water. He gave us the herbs. He gave us a brain that is able to work these things out. And what Jesus said to his disciples, I think, is very applicable. He said, "Nevertheless, I tell you the truth, it's expedient for you that I go away, because if I go not away, the Comforter will come. But he said, if I depart, I will send him unto you." And then he says, "Howbeit, when
When the Spirit of truth is come, he will lead you into all truth. So when we surrender our minds and our hearts to God, asking for his guidance, he will send the Spirit of truth. And that Spirit of truth helps us to discern right from wrong, helps us to discern through reason, intellect, and judgment what is the best way that we should go. I love this because we have such a personal God that wants to know each one of us personally. We don't have to find him through rosary beads. We don't have to find him through wooden crosses. We don't have to find him in a church. We can just go to him. We can pray to him and say, Father, I want to know you. And what he says is, read the Bible. When you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you read the stories of Jesus and you begin to understand and know the great God of heaven that made us with an inbuilt ability to heal itself. But not only that, he will give us the wisdom and guidance to know how to live the best life.
Well, that's all the time we...
Lack of exercise. What Dr. Neil Nedley does, if he gets someone severely depressed, bipolar, schizophrenia, he puts them on 7 hours of exercise a day. Whoa. After 7 days, they are so improved they can go to a 1 hour a day maintenance dose or 15 minutes high intensity interval training. That's cheap medicine, isn't it? Proper diet. Many people's brains are not working well because they haven't got that sure, steady delivery of fuel. That's that high carbohydrate, high sugar diet, up, down, up, down. Use of water. When a person is dehydration, their thoughts can start to develop into negative pathways through dehydration. Our brain's a hydroelectric system, no hydro, no electricity. What makes you fat? It's the carbs. And this fat is one of the most dangerous fats. So let's have a look at this pancreas. We're going to put our pancreas here. Here's pancreas. Now the pancreas, there's the big P, it releases insulin. And as I just showed you, insulin unlocks the door to get the glucose inside the cell. You see, when blood glucose levels are high, then high insulin's released. And what the insulin does is it gets the glucose out of the blood and into the energy pathway, or storing here, or storing as there. In fact, insulin's got a one-set mind. I must store, I must store, I must store. So a lot of people with diabetes, you'll find they're carrying excess weight. Because what's their brain doing? Through insulin, I must store. You see that? Now there's another hormone that the pancreas releases, and it's glucagon. Now what insulin does, it gets the blood sugar level down, as I've just shown you. But if blood glucose levels go too low, glucagon's released and it gets blood sugar levels up. So can you see the pancreas releases these two main hormones that are designed to keep that blood sugar as it should be. But what's happening on this high carbohydrate diet? Huge amounts of glucose are being released, come to the cell, and something starts to develop. It's called insulin resistance. Have you heard of it? Basically, the cell wall says, I'm sick of the sight of you. I'm sick of the sight of you. So it starts to resist. It starts to resist. And the glucose is still in the blood. And the brain's going, oh dear, quick pancreas, more insulin, more insulin, more insulin. But what's the problem? It's not lack of insulin, it's actually insulin resistant. And so eventually the pancreas just says, I'm done with this. I've had enough. I'm worn out. So it's not long after insulin resistance that diabetes happens. Diabetes mellitus simply means sugar in the urine. Because if the glucose can't get into the blood, then it has to spill out into the urine. Can you see that? Do you know the first documented cases of diabetes mellitus was just before the Black Plague in London. And you know what this doctor discovered? That it was only his wealthy patients that it was happening to, because it's only the wealthy that could afford to eat sugar. You see, what sugar does, we've got a red tonight. Yeah, you're still royal, but we're red. So blood glucose levels go up dramatically, when these go in. You see, high glucose demands high insulin. So what happens is, because so much insulin's released, where's blood glucose levels going now? Too low. This is called hypoglycemia. And what does the person do down there? Oh, we'll have a candy, we'll have a Mars bar, we'll have a cup of coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar. Will that get it up? Oh, yes. Oh, no, we're too high. Stop the glucagon, release the insulin. Oh, no, can you see what's happening here? Crisis, 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 crisis. We had the CEO of one of the big sugar mills in Australia come and do our program. He told me there's 15 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of Coke. Do you know how much sugar cane is required for 1 teaspoon? About 1 metre. Have you ever eaten sugar cane? How long does it take to get through 2 inches? How long would it take to get through 15 metres? In other words, a can of Coke should take you about the time to drink as it takes to eat 15 metres. You see where it's just overload. So over here we're going to put a list of some of the causes, and we're going to put refined sugar. And this is the pure crystallised acid that's extracted from the sugarcane plant. And there's a little book by William Dufty called Sugar Blues. Because what does sugar cause? The blues. In fact, in the book, he mentions a British endocrinologist called Dr. John Tintara. He's made the statement, scary statement, he said, no one should go on psychiatric medication until they've had a glucose tolerance test first. Is the fact they just can't handle the sugar and it's going too low? See, look at this. God gave us one hormone, insulin, to get those blood glucose levels down. But he actually gave us 6 to get it up again. Because when we're down there, we're no good, eh? What are they? Number 1 is glucagon. That's one of them. Number 2 and 3 and 4 are 3 hormones released from the adrenal glands. One is cortisol. Another one is adrenaline. And another one is a different type of adrenaline called noradrenaline. That's what you feel on the Big Dipper. Now, these 3 hormones are hormones that are released in a crisis. And in a crisis, you need some energy, yeah? So these all are designed to release fat stores to give excess glucose. Glucagon's designed to release fat stores to give excess glucose. Because remember what fat is. It's storage. There's another one, number 5. Number 5 is the human growth hormone. Now, the human growth hormone's active when we're growing. And if a child's growing and needs a little bit more, that human growth hormone can release fat stores to give glucose. When you do high-intensity interval training, and I'll be defining that a little bit later, you cause a release of this human growth hormone. It's called the youth hormone. So it's designed to release fat stores to give glucose we need. Number 6 is thyroxine. Your thyroid gland controls metabolism. So when your metabolic rate drops too low, your thyroid gland can release thyroxine, which will release fat stores to give you glucose. Can you see what God designed? He designed all these hormones to get us back up again. But do you know what's happening today? Say the person's down here. The brain says, quick, pancreas, release glucagon. Pancreas says, no, we're done. We're overworked. We haven't got anything left. Oh, no, quick. The little adrenal glands on top of your kidneys. Quick, release cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline. Adrenal glands say, nah, the person's drinking too much coffee and the bank account's empty. You know the lift people get from having a cup of coffee? Where's that coming from? It's coming from your bank account. It's like stopping work and living on your bank account for a couple of years. How's your bank account? Gone. It's like this lady said to me, I was at a health retreat in America, and on the second day she said, oh, Barbara, I forgot to tell you I'm on speed. Oh, speed. Yep. Why are you on speed? I need energy. I don't have energy. Oh. And I have to tell you, I stopped yesterday because I thought I probably shouldn't be on it. Oh. She said, and I'm telling you right now, I've got no energy and I'm not happy about it. Oh. Right. I said, where do you think the energy's coming from? She said, the tablets. I said, if it was the tablets, it'd be jumping all around the table. Huh? You'd go into the chemist to buy them and you hang on, I'll just try and grab it here, it's jumping around. Huh? I said, it's coming from your bank account. In fact, the energy it gave you yesterday was today's energy. No wonder you got none. Can you see that? Well, she said, I'm telling you right now, if I go back to work and I haven't got energy, I'm going back on them. Oh. All you can say is, I'm hearing you. Can't agree. I said, I said, you're 33, I imagine you'd like to settle down and have a baby in a few years. Most acid-forming substance you can put in your body, I'm sorry I cannot call it a food because I consider it a poison, and that is the pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugar cane plant. It's a highly concentrated substance, whether it be white, whether it be tan, or whether it be brown. And one of the problems, well, another problem with sugar today is it's highly sprayed because the bugs attack it, because the sugar cane is grown in the same ground again and again and again, so the ground is very depleted in nutrients. So there are many reasons why sugar should never be eaten, and there is no need for us to eat sugar. We've got beautiful sweeteners like honey, maple syrup. You've also got coconut sugar or palm sugars. That's just the crystallized nectar from the palm flower. So there are many sweeteners, so you don't have to go to the poison. So if someone wanted to lose weight, what would be the best fat for them to eat? It's hard to say, isn't it? Because we've been so brainwashed against coconut oil. In fact, the body burns it. It's like the Australian farmer. He got a whole lot of coconuts cheap, so he thought he'd fatten up his cows. Well, his cows lost fat, put on muscle, and started bounding round the paddocks. Do you say paddocks? Fields. So if you want to lose fat and put on muscle and start bounding round Bermuda's mountains, what do you eat? Coconut. Knowledge is easy to him that understands. Is that right? Yeah. Another way that you can boost hydrochloric acid production is the juice of a lemon with a little bit of boiling water on it. The heat in the stomach and that lemon, the acid lemon, will boost your digestion. So when you have a salad, squeeze lemon all over it. Fruit salad, squeeze lemon all over it. Lemon is a wonderful digestive aid, but it is also a liver tonic. Hydrochloric acid is antifungal, it's antibacterial, so that if any bacteria happens to be on the food coming into the stomach, it'll wipe it out. So if someone's drinking with their meals, they water down the enzymes in the stomach, and the stomach knows that, so digestion stops. All the fluid has to be got rid of, and then it has to go back to digesting the food. And isn't that an Aussie habit, drinking with the meals? Every time Michael and I go to a restaurant, the first question we're asked is what? What are you going to have to drink? And we always say, no, we've already drank. Oh, well, we'll just bring you water. Now, we let them, because otherwise they'll never leave us alone. We should stop drinking half an hour before the meal, and that means that we've got a nice acid environment, and then resume drinking 1.5 hours to 2 hours after the meal. So flu bomb, and when you taste it, it'll seem like you've just drunk a bomb. Garlic. Now, someone loves garlic, they might have 2 cloves, but approximately 1 clove. And if I was doing it for a child, I'd use a very tiny little clove, and that's crushed. The next ingredient is ginger, and this is about 1/4 teaspoon, and that's finely chopped. The third ingredient is the juice of a lemon. It's usually 1 lemon juice. And the next ingredient is honey, and usually 1 teaspoon. The next ingredient is eucalyptus oil, or you can use tea tree oil, 1 drop. And the next ingredient is cayenne pepper. And I'll just leave that one free, because for some people it's a light shake. For other people who are very brave, it might be 1/2 teaspoon. Now, all of these things are put in 1/2 cup of hot water. You drink it. And if a person's got anything from pneumonia to bronchitis to asthma to the flu to sinus problems, any respiratory problems, that will bring relief. And it usually brings relief for about 4 hours if you have such a complaint that you have 3 or 4 a day. It's usually best with a meal, because if you put all that heating herbs onto a raw stomach, cast iron stomach wouldn't hurt, but a tender stomach might feel a little bit sore. Nothing else will do that. And in hospitals today, they use charcoal for poisoning cases. One girl said to me, I had an overdose and they gave me a choice to have my stomach pumped out or take charcoal. She said, I chose the charcoal. So charcoal absorbs and neutralises poisons. So it can be used internally and it can be used externally. Now, charcoal doesn't have a taste. And you can use it if any poison has been ingested. And it can also be used if a person has diarrhea or gastric or bloating. The charcoal, when it's taken, will absorb and neutralise the poisons and can bring a lot of relief. So if ever I had a baby that had a bit of diarrhea, I'd give them a bit of charcoal. And when I got the black nappy, because I didn't use disposable nappy, I knew that my baby was well, because once that charcoal goes through, it absorbs and neutralises the poisons. So you can use it internally and you can use it externally. You use it externally, again, for cases of poisoning. So it can be used for a bee sting, a ant bite, a snake bite. You don't have many snakes here. We have a few in Australia. Spider bites. Do you have spiders? Oh, maybe we don't need to talk about the chocolate. Wasps, bees, any sting, it's quite incredible. You almost have to experience it to believe it, that it takes the pain out straight away. And the reason it takes the pain out is because it absorbs and neutralises the poisons. In many shampoos today, there is a chemical and it's called sodium lauryl sulfate. And sodium lauryl sulfate makes it foam and it kills hair follicles. It's important to buy shampoo that doesn't have sodium lauryl sulfate, because that certainly can contribute to hair loss. A great thing that you can do with your hair that will really nourish it and help it is about once a month, just rub coconut oil into your scalp and also pull it through your hair and bind your hair up. Just bind it up and leave it there all day. And at the end of the day, shampoo it out. That's very nourishing for the scalp. What about dandruff? Dandruff can often happen when using shampoo with sodium lauryl sulfate. It can also happen when a person's on a high sugar diet, because that basically feeds the dandruff. Table salt will contribute to high blood pressure. There's a French doctor named Dr. Lelangre, and he's written a whole book on salt. He said, when people come to me with high blood pressure, I put them on Celtic salt. Why does he put them on Celtic salt? Because Celtic salt contains 82 minerals. It's a hand-harvested sea salt. So the minerals are in the Celtic salt in their balanced form. What about Himalayan salt? In many places, Himalayan salt is a lot easier to get, about 75 minerals. So it's pretty good, but I prefer the Celtic salt. And one reason is that the Celtic salt has 3 magnesiums. It contains magnesium chloride, magnesium bromide, and magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, and this explains why the Celtic salt is such a moist salt, especially when we've had a lot of rain, because those 3 magnesiums absorb the moisture. And because magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, it can be used to help the water get into the cell. So when you take a crystal of Celtic salt, put it on your tongue, and some say, how big's a crystal? Well, if you've got high blood pressure, start small, about the size of a sesame seed. I don't have high blood pressure, so I might have about 3 times little sesame seeds. Put it on your tongue, your mucous membranes start absorbing the minerals, the magnesium is taken to the cell membrane, and you drink your water, and that magnesium pulls that water inside the cell. It's the quickest way to hydrate a body. The only time
excess water drinking can be dangerous is if people drink too much at once and don't have the minerals that are in the Celtic salt to pull that water inside the cell. I've had people complain to me, they say, I'm drinking more water now and now I'm going to the bathroom all day. So I say, are you having the salt? Have a little crystal before every glass of water. And ideally, we should be having approximately 8 glasses of water a day. And then I say to them, and don't drink a whole glass at once. I think I mentioned earlier, I drink half a glass as soon as I get up. I go to the bathroom, I drink another half glass. But when I start every glass, I have that little bit of salt. And many people have said to me, thank you so much, that has made a big difference. So high blood pressure can be a result of dehydration. It can be a result of mineral deficiency, magnesium deficiency. It can be a result of vitamin D deficiency. It can be a result of a high carbohydrate, high sugar diet. It can be a result of inactivity. So there's a whole lot of things that can come together to contribute to high blood pressure. Genetics loads the gun, but it is lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Now, Dr. Robert Atkins knew that science. So he looked at himself getting this, what we call spare tire. So he decided to do an experiment on himself. He decided to stop all carbohydrates. What did he eat? He ate a lot of vegetables, okay? And a lot of people don't realize that, with the exclusion of the potato. So he was eating a lot of fiber. And he knew also that the gastrointestinal tract needed to move through the next 2 food groups. He ate a lot of meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So there was his protein. And meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs was also supplying another food group, which was fat. Remember, he just experimented on himself. Few things happened. His weight just fell off. Why? Well, he's not supplying the quick-release glucose stores. And so his liver has to start breaking down his fat stores. It's called gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from the fat stores. He was never hungry. Why? Because these are the 3 food groups that keep the food in the stomach longer. Fiber binds up the glucose and it slowly releases it. Protein, well, protein's broken down specifically in the stomach. And fat, it coats the food a little bit, so it takes a little bit longer to break down. That's good news because it means we don't have to be eating all day long. We can eat and forget about food for the next 5 or 6 hours. He had heaps of energy. Where's he getting his energy from if he's not giving this quick-release glucose foods? Well, as I mentioned, his liver breaks down his fat stores to give him the glucose, and his liver has the ability to break down protein and fat to give glucose. He had lots of energy, weight's falling off him, and he's never hungry. Has he found the perfect diet? Well, the 11 million people that it has been estimated has been helped by his diet agree. Number 1 on the New York Times best-selling list was 4 years running. You know what this information says? This man demands us to have a look because I want to know why. So when I had a man come to our program who said to me, he was a businessman, he said, I know you're not going to like it, Barbara, but I go so well on the Atkins diet. Now, if I'm worth anything, what am I going to do? Listen. I'm going to listen because this is his body. It works well. I was interested. And I was interested in a way that I'd never been interested before because people used to say, oh, that Atkins diet's terrible, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So I thought, oh, well, I'm not too interested in that. But I became interested in this man. And it's quite a long story. It's a fascinating story how eventually the book came across my path. I opened it. I could not put it down. I read it in 2 days. His science is correct. There's the science. So when Atkins was popular, I used to give a meeting called Dr. Atkins' Missing Link. And his missing link really is the vegetarian protein. I'm jumping ahead. Let's have a look at what he found. So he started to put some of his patients on this. Oh, they were so happy they can eat anything they can't usually eat on a weight loss diet. Weight's falling off them. Within 6 months, he had all his patients on the diet. After a year, a few things started happening which he was unprepared for. His cancer patients were going into remission. How so? Do you remember what cancer cells are consuming? 15 times the glucose of any other cell. This is a low glucose diet. His diabetics were coming off their medication. This is type 1 and type 2 diabetics. Absolutely, there was weight loss. You might be surprised at the next one. His patients with high cholesterol levels came back to normal. And what are they eating? Meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. What are people told if they want to get their cholesterol levels down? What have they got to stop? Meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. Is that right? He's scratching his head. He only did it for weight loss. And that's why he wrote his book. But before he wrote his book, he went into the medical journals. And he opened once again his anatomy and physiology book that he hadn't looked in for probably about 20 years. And this is what he found, that these 3 food groups are the essential food. I've heard of people say, I had breast cancer, tried the natural way and it just didn't work. I had ovarian cancer, tried the natural way and it didn't work. I'm always intrigued as to what this natural way is. Because yes, definitely we need water, we need exercise, we need early nights, we need nourishing food. That's all fairly common sense, isn't it? But what I'm about to tell you today is the missing link into why those 2 ladies didn't heal. In fact, why many didn't heal. And it also explains why Angelina Jolie did not have to remove her breasts, and many women follow suit. They actually just needed to balance their hormones. So I'm going to begin by going through some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance, and then I'm going to give you the symptoms of a man having a hormonal imbalance. So with a woman, it would be early periods. Do you know normal is 16 to 18? And you hardly ever hear that today. We're getting young girls who are getting their periods at 9. That's a hormonal imbalance. Very heavy periods, very painful periods. Sore breasts at period time, premenstrual tension. These are all symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. Also, polycystic ovarian syndrome, ovaries that have cysts growing on them, fibroids in the uterus, endometriosis, lumps in the breast, breast cancer, cervical cancer, also polyps in the vagina, in the uterus, also depression and heart disease. These are some of the symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What about a man? For a man, some of the symptoms are low sperm count. A lot of couples can't have children today. Sometimes it's the man, sometimes it's the woman. Also penile dysfunction or erectile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection. In Australia, the current figures are 50% of men over the age of 40 are having trouble with this. That's crazy. Sorry, I got that mixed up. It's 40% of men over the age of 50 are struggling with this. And also prostate problems. A man with prostate problems, it's an indication of a hormonal imbalance. Too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate, and too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. All of these are symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What I want to do this morning is I want to take you through the monthly cycle, and then I want to show you what throws the cycle out of balance, and then I want to finish by showing you what brings the balance back. Notice that our sex hormones are made from cholesterol, and that is why they've just added breast cancer to one of the side effects of the cholesterol lowering medication. If you don't have enough cholesterol, you can't make your sex hormones. Why are people having trouble with sleep? Well, Proverbs 14 verse 6 says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. So what my aim is to give you an understanding of sleep. I want to show you what happens when you sleep. And when you understand what happens when you sleep, you begin to have a knowledge on the important times to sleep and why. There's a little tiny gland in the base of the brain, and it's called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is about the size of maybe a macadamia nut. and it's right in the base of your brain. And the pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night, but only in certain hours. In the winter time, it's between 9 and 2. And I think your summertime ends end of October, is that right? We call it daylight saving. So in Australia, I think daylight saving's just about begun, and that when daylight saving, so at the moment you're still on summertime, yeah? So at the moment it's between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Why only those times? It has much to do with the moons and the tides. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control centre in the brain where your body clock is located. And your body clock communicates with the pineal gland. And these are the hormones that are released. One is melatonin. A lot of people have heard of melatonin. Some people that don't sleep very well take melatonin. Well, we naturally release melatonin in that time, and it's called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. So it is this hormone that probably is mostly responsible for the fix and rejuvenation that's happening in our brain and our body while we sleep. Another hormone is serotonin. That's the mood hormone. So if you want to feel good, go to bed early. What are the kids like if they have a late night? Not very happy. Either are the adults. Another hormone that's released in these hours from the pineal gland is arginine vasotocin. Those kids are having a ball out there somewhere, yeah? Arginine vasotocin is our natural painkiller. Did you know you have a natural painkiller? When you go to bed in these hours, your natural painkiller is released. But your natural painkiller, when it's used, it leaves a waste. And if that waste hasn't been released, then the next night, arginine vasotocin won't be released. How do we get rid of the waste from using our arginine vasotocin? That's exercise. When you exercise in the day, as you perspire, you are letting go of the waste. And that's why exercise is so important to be able to increase your ability to sleep. Ecclesiastes says the sleep of a labouring man is sweet. In other words, when you physically move through the day, you get physical exhaustion at night and you can sleep better. So arginine vasotocin is your natural painkiller, and arginine vasotocin puts you into a deep sleep. So the earlier you go to bed, the more likely you are to fall into a deep sleep. The other hormone that's released is epithalamin. And epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. God designed our brain to be learning new things right up until the day we die. Many people's brains deteriorate because they stop learning new things. We should ever learn new things. I love the story of the 90-year-old man who learnt to play the piano, and the 92-year-old man that graduated from law school. After hearing the lecture on renewing the mind, a 75-year-old man came up to me. He said, I recently put away my most difficult violin pieces. He said, I'm going home to get them out again. So epithalamin increases learning capacity. So to be able to understand and retain the new things that you're learning, we need to go to bed early. You ask any teacher, they can tell the children that had a late night because they just don't get it. They don't retain. And epithalamin slows down aging. Everyone over the age of 25 likes that one. So these are the hormones that are released in these hours every night. But what I'd like to look at now is what foods have an acid effect and what foods have an alkaline effect. And this will enable you to ensure that you're having a more alkaline diet. So we're going to have a look at alkaline foods and we're going to look at acid foods. And you might be surprised to see that the first alkaline food I'm putting up here is the humble lemon. And you might say, no, the lemon's acid. It is. And it's acid where it should be. There's only one part in the body that should be acid. You know where that is? Stomach. No, the lemon is acid where it should be. That's why you'll find that most of our salad dressings have lemon in them. But when it is broken down in the gut and the minerals are dispersed and absorbed into the blood and thus to the tissues, it has an alkaline effect because the lemon is high in the alkaline minerals, which is sodium and potassium, calcium, magnesium and iron. These are the alkaline minerals, and the lemon is high in the alkaline minerals. Don't you love the lemon? Every home should have a lemon tree. And if you're in a unit, you can have a lemon tree in a pot on your veranda. Dark green leafy vegetables are also alkaline forming. Dark green leafy vegetables we should be eating every day. That's your kale, that's your parsley, that's your, what you call them, collard greens. Do you know, I've never seen collard greens in Australia. You can tell I'm in Alabama. They're a popular food here, but we do have spinach and silver beet, kale. We should be eating something from the dark green family of vegetables every single day. And if you don't, you really should have a dose of green barley or super greens. Also vegetables. Vegetables have an alkaline effect. But there is a question mark with vegetables. I'm putting a question mark here because for some people these have an alkaline effect and sometimes an acid effect. There's the tomato and bell pepper, or in Australia we call that capsicum. Also eggplant, and some countries call this aubergine. And last is the potato. Now this is not the sweet potato. The sweet potato is actually not a potato. The sweet potato is a yam. I'm referring to the English potato or the Irish potato. This is the nightshade group of vegetables, and for some people they have an acid effect, and for some people they have an alkaline effect. Let me tell you what I have found with me. My mother died at 51, a cripple in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis. I have strong inherited genes to that way. And my body says to me, a little tomato now and then. My body says to me, don't even touch the bell pepper. What happens if I touch it? Oh, it repeats on me all afternoon and my energy just goes. So I say, I'm hearing your body and I don't eat it. The eggplant, I have a little eggplant now and then, maybe twice a month. Potato, my husband's an Irishman. Potatoes must be in every main meal, so I have it probably most days. That's what my body tells me. I don't know what your body will tell you. Now, I could have 10 professors in front of me saying, this is ridiculous, Barbara. The bell pepper is a very good vegetable. It is high in antioxidants and vitamin C's. You should be eating it. Who am I going to listen to? I've got to live in this body. That's why the fine-tuning is yours. No man on the planet can tell you the fine-tuning. Only your body can. We had one lady who conquered her arthritis. Isn't that good news? Yeah. She conquered her arthritis by stopping the nightshades. It appears if you have an inflammatory condition in the body, the nightshades will feed that inflammation. She conquered her arthritis. She was in her 70s. Even her swollen joints came down. Isn't that good news? She said to me, do you think I could start eating that now? I said, you could try. Your body will quickly tell you. She told me later that her body lets her have half a tomato every second day. Her body does not let her have the bell pepper. Her body lets her have a little eggplant now and then, and she has potato a couple of times a week. She said, my body's happy with that. One lady said to me, I can have the green bell pepper, but not the red. Another lady said, well, I can have the red and not the green. Another lady said, I can have the raw and not the cooked. And another lady said, well, I can have the cooked and not the raw. I find that my body's very happy with cayenne pepper, and yet that's from the capsicum of the bell pepper family. I think perhaps the medicinal properties of the cayenne pepper may be far outweigh for me the reaction. So the choice is yours, the question mark's there. If you love this food, if you have no reaction and no arthritis, enjoy. When you cook the tomato with an oil, and I think you'll agree with me, Olive oil and tomatoes go very nice. They almost hand in hand together. And you look at Lebanese food, Italian food, there's a lot of tomato and olive oil cooking. When it's cooked with an oil, it releases a plant chemical called lycopene. Lycopene is from the fat-soluble family, and that's another reason why we should be eating a little oil with our meals, because it helps release the fat-soluble vitamins. Lycopene is a potent antioxidant, and it has the ability to reduce the inflammation of the prostate gland, so that's good news, isn't it? So every man over the age of 40 should be having a cooked tomato and olive oil dish maybe 3 or 4 times a week. That's not hard. Lovely base for your chickpeas, your tomatoes, it is tomatoes. For your, in fact, isn't that Mexican? Your kidney beans to have with your tacos, I think you call them. Lima beans and lentils and soy are the 3 alkaline forming legumes. For your grains, the millet is alkaline. We had millet this morning. It's a delicious grain, isn't it? I'm sure you can understand when I said it needs to be dressed. It's basically a bland grain, but it's very nice with the stewed apple and the pear cream and the sprinkles on top. Or it's also very nice if you have it with savoury, your lentils. Quinoa. I think we'll be having quinoa at another breakfast time. These are alkaline grains, but they're also gluten-free grains, so that's made them very popular. Amaranth. Amaranth is a grain that's not very well known. I think the Aztecs, traditionally they've eaten the quinoa and the amaranth. It's a very tiny grain, and when you cook it, it goes like a lump of glue. But what I often do when my grandsons are with us, because they like a porridge, I'll put a little amaranth with the millet, or I'll put a little amaranth with the quinoa, or if they have oats, I'll put a little amaranth with the oats. So that's quite nice. Spelt. Spelt and kamut are wild hybrids of the original wheat. The 2 nuts are your almond and Brazil. And all your seeds have an alkaline effect. Lack of vitamins can cause depression. The vitamin that is probably the most famous in treating mental illness is the vitamin Bs. Think of B vitamins as brain vitamins. Some of the B1, B2, B3s are responsible for the messages getting from cell to cell. They also are responsible for the little parts of the little energy cycles inside of every cell. But the vitamin B, the most famous, is vitamin B3, which is niacin, or called nicotinic acid. 1% of psychiatrists are treating mental illness with nutrition. Nice to know, isn't it? There are a few out there. And this is what they use. Sometimes they use up to 3,000 milligrams of nicotinic acid. That's 10,000 milligrams of nicotinic acid. That's 10 grams. That's a very high dose. It's not forever. It's just until the situation, the condition is brought under control. We have a DVD that our guests watch at night called Food Matters. I don't know if anyone's seen this DVD, Food Matters. Interesting DVD on the importance of food in health. And there's a story of a girl who was in a catatonic state, just sitting there looking at the wall. And her family heard about this nicotinic acid. And they put her on 11,000 milligrams. That's 11 grams. Do you know she snapped out of it? Came off her medication. It was incredible. They told the doctor, and the doctor said, "This is very dangerous." So they took her off it, put her on a medication, and now she's just sitting at the wall. No one has ever died from a vitamin overdose. If they did, would we hear about it? I tell you what, it'd be headlines. But my daughter, her girlfriend, had a baby. in hospital. It was her second baby. The baby had a little cold. They put the baby on antibiotics. The baby died. The baby died within a few hours. You never hear of that. In fact, there's no ramification for that. That's why I say if you have a baby in the hospital, keep that baby next to you and get out as quickly as possible. There are some excellent nurses and there are some excellent doctors. There are some excellent plumbers and there are some excellent builders and there are some excellent painters and there are some not so good painters and plumbers, yeah? You just got to do your research. Lack of progesterone can cause depression. I think it was Thursday night when we looked at hormones and we saw that progesterone's nickname is happy hormone. And there are many people, particularly women, who are suffering from depression because they were on the pill when they were younger, or they had exposure to chemicals, or they're having too much exposure to plastics. All of these things displace progesterone with estrogen. And estrogen, when it's high and progesterone's low, depression can happen. So how do you remedy that? Well, the person can go on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, which little by little by little will boost up the progesterone. And then they implement these 8 laws of health, and then little by little they can ease off their antidepressants. I've seen it happen many times. That's good news, isn't it? In fact, sometimes this imbalance in hormones is the missing link in depression. Because remember, you can't just get depression. There is a reason for that. And I've met some people who've been through some shocking things in their life. I read a book called by Dave Pelzer. I don't know if you read that, The Lost Boy. It was the third worst case of child abuse in American history. And this child, well, I'm not even going to tell you what he went through, but it was just absolutely horrific. It's amazing that the child even survived. He used to come to school with new bruises on him all the time, and he came to school one day and his hands were burnt up to his elbows. His mother used to put him in acid. Anyway, he never went home after that. They took him and put him in a foster home. Do you know that guy never had depression? He found freedom through forgiving his mother. And when he found out that his grandmother used to lock his mother in the cupboard whenever she's naughty, sometimes for days, he began to understand, It didn't make what his mother did right, but he actually learnt to forgive. And he found freedom through forgiveness. And do you know that he got an award as Youth of the Year in America. This is, I think, back in about the 90s. Just incredible what this young man became, considering where he came from. And you read that book and you know what you think? I got no excuse. This is just incredible. And that's why I say it's not what's happened to you, it's what you do with it. And many people struggle with forgiveness because they think they've got to feel like it. That's why in my last lecture I showed you don't got to feel like it at all. How could you feel like it? Just do it. And remember, practice makes perfect, and practice makes permanent, and little by little it'll come in. So progesterone, that's an important link in conquering depression. And we're looking at what causes an imbalance. Excess. What's the excess that can cause the chemical imbalance in the brain? Excess pain. If someone's in pain, the question mark has to be asked, why is this so? What can be done to relieve it? Hydrotherapy treatments, or maybe ginger poultices, or maybe high-dose turmeric, or maybe a trip to the osteopath to find out if the spine's aligned. One has to investigate as to why the pain is there to see what can be remedied. Also, excess food. This is a big thing today. People are just overloading the stomach and also putting food in all through the day, which irritates the stomach, irritates the nerves, and then the nerves all over the body get irritated. I know my first daughter, she's 40 now. When she was a little toddler, every time she'd get a little bit whingy or upset, I'd just give her half her apple and she'd be happy for a while. And then half an hour later, I'd give her a little bowl of sultanas. You know, I just gave her all these bits and pieces. And then I read about how we've only got one stomach. And that stomach needs a rest between meals. And often children are irritable because they're getting food all the time. And so I stopped her. And whenever she'd get a little bit irritable, I'd distract her, or I'd just sit and cuddle her for a while and read her a book, and I found I only had to do that for 5 minutes and then she'd be happy. And then I found she stayed happy. And I realised that the very thing I was giving her to make her happy was actually making her more irritable. And so after that I never gave my children anything to eat between meals. Now, I probably told you about Peter, who used to cry about 4 times through the meal because the banana would fall into the honey or the spoon would fall some. You know, sometimes he had to leave the room so much that he didn't hardly get any breakfast. And I used to think, I'm going to have trouble with that little one, and he was 3 or 4. So he'd come to me about 10 o'clock, Mum, I'm hungry. You know what you never do? You never say, well, you should have eaten your food, da, 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 da. You know, they're not dumb. They're really smart kids, okay? And you lose them when you nag. I'd say, well, have a big drink of water. He'd have a big drink of water, that'd keep him happy for a while. Now it's 12 o'clock, we don't eat till 1:30. I'm hungry. All right, if you sit very still, you can have a half a glass of almond milk or soy milk, or if I actually have carrot celery and apple juice made, that'll keep him going a bit longer. Now it's 1 o'clock. Mum, I'm hungry. All right, if you sit very still, you can have a carrot. How long does it take a 3-year-old to eat a carrot? A long, long time. And by the time he's halfway through it, lunch is ready. You see, if I give him something at midday, he's not going to eat his 1:30 meal, and then he's going to be hungry at, 3? Can you see? And, you know, it doesn't hurt to go a little bit of time without food. Stomach likes it. Excess food can cause depression. Excess stimulation. You know, we should allow ourselves times of peace. And today this is a huge problem. Eye stimulation means brain stimulation. And many people, the television's always on, or the iPad, or the games, it's just go, 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 go.
God designed for us to drink pure water. But just before each glass of water, if you take a crystal of Celtic salt is a hand-harvested sea salt from the Celtic Sea. And the Celtic salt contains 82 minerals. Those minerals that you find in the bones in the exact proportion. If you take a crystal of Celtic salt in your mouth just before each glass of water, so that's an average of 8 times a day, Dr. Robert Thompson says all you're doing is replacing the minerals you lost yesterday. We lose some minerals when we perspire. We lose some minerals when we urinate. All bodies waste fluids that come out. We're losing a few minerals. We need to replace them. I ask you, what is avocado and tomato on some lovely rye sourdough bread if it hasn't got some salt on it? What's a baked potato without salt? The Bible talks about salt in Matthew chapter 5 verse 13. It says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." I'd like to suggest that table salt has lost its savour. You see, 30% of the minerals in seawater is sodium, 50% is chloride. So they're the first crystals formed. They're scooped up, bleached, aluminium's added. There's your table salt. And so one way to overcome osteoporosis is to make sure our bones are getting minerals. This lady had to stop her tea, all her caffeine, all her refined sugar, because it was leaching the minerals out. And she had to make sure she has dark green leafy vegetables every day. Now in the background here you'll see the garden with lots of dark green leafy vegetables. We should be eating dark green leafy vegetables every day. They're very high in minerals. The problem today is many vegetables are grown in devitalized soil. So it's important to have organic. Organic fruits and vegetables are grown in soil that's been fed with minerals. They have compost in it, which has the microbes in it to access the minerals out of the soil and into the plants. So to strengthen the bones, Helen had to start eating more greens. She had to start having Celtic salt every day, eating organic foods. She had to stop all the stimulants that are leaching the minerals. She had to go on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, which can balance the hormones. Time to strengthen the bones too. How do you strengthen the bones? Strength comes by exercise. The most powerful exercise is the exercise that defies gravity. That's your rebounding, or your trampoline. So start rebounding every day. Every time you leap up, your bones and your muscles are getting strengthened. You hit the mat, they strengthen. You go up again, they strengthen. So defying gravity strengthens bones. Strength comes by exercise. Push-ups. Everyone should do push-ups every day. Have you done your push-ups today? Ladies, you can do your push-ups on your knees. If you can't get on the knees, you can do push-ups against the wall or against the bench. You're defying gravity every time you push back. That strengthens the bones. So it is not hard to overcome osteoporosis. Stop the things that are leaching the minerals. Start taking high mineral diet, which is your greens, using your Celtic salt on your food, organically grown fruits and vegetables. Balance the hormones. And you can have strong bones the way God meant us to have strong bones.
Did you know that Vladimir Putin, the Russian's president, he's passed a law that any Russian who grows or sells genetically modified foods is to be considered a terrorist. Whew. He's even giving land away to Russians who will grow food organically, non-GMO. You put his name and GMO in Google that and you'll read the spiel. He says, we Russians look across at the West, over-vaccinated, over-medicated, overfed, sitting in front of boxes every night in their lounge rooms, eating food that has no nutrients, he said, and we know it's weakening the West. Is he right? Absolutely right. Yeah. Unfortunately, Monsanto is so powerful and so wealthy and so big, they win every court case where Australians want GMO to be labelled on the products. Happens in America too, it's unfortunate. So how do you know? Well, you don't, unless you buy organic. You see, if an organic farmer uses genetically modified seed, they lose their organic status. So grow as much as you can yourself. And the more Aussies that buy organic, the more organic will be available. One organic tomato will give you 9 times the iron of a conventionally grown tomato. So you get much more value for your money, even though organic is more expensive. How much time have I got? Because I could spend a lot of time on comfrey. Comfrey is a remarkable herb. And comfrey has a growth stimulant, so don't put it in your garden. It will just take over because it's got a growth stimulant. Now maybe down here in Invercargill, with your cool winter months and lots of frost, maybe it won't get out of control because in the winter all the leaves go and the root remains. But in the early spring the comfrey shoots up. Now comfrey contains a growth stimulant, so wherever you apply comfrey it's going to stimulate rapid healing. Its nickname is knit bone because of its ability to knit bone, and it can knit tendons and ligaments and tissues. In the spring and in the summer, the active nutrients from the comfrey are found in the new leaves. But in the autumn and in the winter, all the healing properties go down to the root. So if you use comfrey in the winter, you use the root. If you use comfrey in the spring and summer, you use the leaves. The smaller leaves are very, very potent. Now there've been messages coming out through the media that comfrey's dangerous. Have you heard that? And it will cause liver damage.
Well, in her book, How I Can Use Herbs in My Everyday Life, Isabel Shepherd, she gives a whole section on comfrey, and she tells the story of a farmer who bought an old cow, female cow, from the abattoirs. The cow was old, could hardly walk, and he was going to experiment on this old cow because the cow was going to die anyway. So all the farmer did was give it comfrey leaves, and he wilted them. They'll wilt, you know, within an hour of picking, so the cow could eat more. The cow got stronger and stronger and bigger and started prancing around the paddock and started to produce milk. And he said the cream on that milk was about 1/3 of the milk. Why did he do it? To prove. See, they say that comfrey will cause liver damage. That's all this cow ate. Didn't even eat any grass, just the comfrey. Incredible experiment.
Sheep will eat it too.
Sheep will eat it too, and sheep will not eat a plant that will hurt them, will they? It's a remarkable herb because it has a growth stimulant in it. It's got a growth stimulant, it's anti-inflammatory, so it gets the inflammation down, and it's a lubricant. So it's excellent on bones. We had a lady, and I'll make this story very short, she broke her leg, she broke her tibia and her fibula, and she had a crushed knee. And we knew it was broken because when we found her, she'd fallen off a bike. She's 56. The bone was not sticking through the skin, but it was poking up like a tent. Anyway, we had a guy there that knew bones, and he said, "Hold on, Katie," and he realigned it. The ambulance came, took her away, and anyway, she was in hospital 3 weeks, and they would not operate. They were going to do pins and plates on her because her leg was so swollen. And her husband was getting frustrated with this, so he brought her home, and we brought her into my lounge room. And it was the winter, so we grated up the comfrey root every night. Every night we grated up the comfrey root. We made a poultice. You grate up the root, and it goes like chewing gum. You see, it's got this lubricant in it. And we'd make a poultice, like I showed you the other day, and then I'd pour a little bit of boiling water on it to soften it a bit and warm it and put it on the leg. And I'd put it around the knee and also where the break was in the tibia and the fibula. And we would pray over it. We'd say, "Father in heaven, we don't know what we're doing here, but you do." Do you know that lady totally healed? It was incredible. She did not get out of bed for, I think it was 5 weeks. And we kept it straight, but every night we'd put the comfrey poultice on it. And then after 6 weeks, she started to walk with crutches. And then I think it was another 2 weeks, and she started gingerly walk with a walking frame. And it was probably about 3 months, and she was running. Now, they told her she'd probably never walk properly again because it was such a serious break. Now, that was probably the most serious thing that we have ever done. And the doctor, when she went back to the doctor, he said it mustn't have been broken. But there was an x-ray that showed it, and the bone was nearly through, because it's unbelievable, isn't it? It isn't when you realise what comfrey does. Remember the 3 things? It has a growth stimulant, so whether it be bone or tissue, or tendon or ligament or skin. Growth stimulant, it's a lubricant, excellent for joints. And it also reduces the inflammation. So I told you that if I was going to talk about comfrey, I'd need a bit of time. It's a remarkable, remarkable herb. So we pick the leaves in the spring and the summer, and I dry them till they're totally dried out in a warm oven, and then I pound them up to a powder, and I do that 3 times, so I've got 50 leaves. So in my jar I've got 150 leaves. They come down to a fine powder. The jar's this big, I fill it 1/3 full, then I fill it with olive oil and I shake it and I let it sit for 2 months. And after 2 months, I strain it into a double saucepan and then I warm beeswax, I mix them together and pour it into jars. And you can ring Misty Mountain Health Retreat and get a jar of comfrey cream. It's dark green.
When do you get time to do anything else?
Oh, that's one of my hobbies. Yes?
Bones have been broken and have healed, presumably, and now you've got arthritis. Would comfrey do anything for that, or would you have something else?
Yes, comfrey would help, but for arthritis, the ginger poultice will take the inflammation out. Yes?
So when you were telling the story, cats broke
Oh, yes, yeah. Every day. Even when it looked like it was probably healed, we just still did it. Yep. And it's remarkable how it healed. But I was on a plane one day and I was next to an orthopaedic surgeon. How I discovered this was because I'm platinum frequent flyer, I'm always up the front of the plane. So this guy was next to me and he had a suit on and he had a book in there and it said, Healing at a Cellular Level. So when I sat down, I said, that looks like an interesting book. And he looked at me and said, who are you? I said, I'm Barbara O'Neill. What do you do? I said, I'm a nutritionist and a naturopath. And he went, I said, and who are you? He said, well, I'm Dr. Such and Such and I'm an orthopaedic surgeon. And I went, Anyway, now we're on a level ground, we began to talk. He said, you know, before we orthopaedic surgeons, bones healed. Bones healed. The orthopaedic surgeon can't heal a bone, the body heals the bone. So basically what the comfrey did, and I think if we didn't do the comfrey, I think it probably would have still healed, but not as quickly. The comfrey boosted up and I was giving her high nutrition. In fact, this orthopaedic surgeon said to me, do you know, half of the surgeries we do are unnecessary. Wow. I said, well, what I do is I teach people to look after their bodies so they don't get to you. He said, good. He said, I don't do unnecessary surgeries, but he said, many do. He said, they've got to pay the bills. Oh, think about that. So how nice if we can keep our body strong and healthy. I said to him, well, if I get a broken bone, I'll come and see you. He said, I won't see you. Because he knew. He said, I got these women and their knees are breaking up. He said, they're very overweight. He said, they insist, so I do knee replacement. He said, I don't know how that knee's going to ever heal with all that weight on it. He said, we have a hard job. And I agree, they do have a hard job. They do the best they can, but how nice if we can actually give our body the conditions so it's strong and healthy, and if there is an injury, it will heal. And these herbs help, and the poultices help, and the hydrotherapy helps. Remember, it is the body and the body alone that can heal. I thank God for the healing powers of the body, but I also thank Him for these herbs. And I thank Him for the poultices, and I thank Him for the water therapies. Body parts. If you just Google cancer fungus, you will see a whole area come up there. So how do we get it out of the body? Number one, starve it. What's its favourite food? Sugars. If we get someone coming to us wanting help with cancer, we even take them off fruit for 6 weeks. Because this is such an important subject, and I believe so important, and it's almost pivotal, knowing and managing our health to know the roles that these microbes play, I have written a book on the subject. It's called Self-Heal by Design. And I think Amelia, here's Amelia, front row. Amelia's my right hand, I nearly said man, lady. And she has, I think she has some on a table out there. And the book goes into detail on how you can do this. And what I have done is I've put in more detail what I've presented today, but I have quoted many books. I'm acting as a journalist. There are many that have done the research, and I certainly quote them. So basically, you've got to stop anything that will feed it. Remember, they're just opportunist organisms. So the more they're fed, the more they'll hang around. Also, one must check the house. I'm sure there's a lot of mould activity in my compost bin, but it's nowhere near my house. There must not be any mould in the house. If there is, you've got to find out why. Never put bleach on mould. You put bleach on mould, you will create one of the most toxic mixtures on the planet and has killed people. So how do we get rid of it? White vinegar. If there's any mould in your house, you put a mask on, put white vinegar in a spray bottle, spray it, and leave the room immediately. Come back 15 minutes later and you can wipe it up. If you spray and wipe, the dust comes off, it'll go through your pores of your skin, you can inhale it. This is toxic stuff. You've got to keep away from it.
And then when you've wiped it all up, then you get a damp cloth and put something like clove essential oil and wipe that over. And then go to the phone and ring the plumber or the builder or the man that can clean all the leaves out of your gutter. You just got to find out why it is there. It should not be there. The house should be clean, dry, airy, let the sun in, keep the fans on. Right at this moment, our health retreat has closed down while I am lecturing here, and every room is shut, every window is shut, and the fans are on full bore. Is that an Aussie saying? Full on. So that when we go back next Sunday and open those rooms, they will be nice and fresh. So there's no way any yeast or mould can grow in them, because we live in a rainforest and we don't keep those if we're in those rooms, the windows are wide open, but when no one's there. So when you go away, you've got to shut everything up and have the fans on. Fans do not take up much electricity. Number 2, you got to kill this fungus. I think we've got to get away from the kill mentality, but there are herbs that will kill fungus and won't kill you. One is garlic, another is olive leaf extract. Portiaco is a South American herb. In my book, I list all of the different essential oils and herbs that can kill fungus. Number 3, we've got to bring back the balance. Flood the gastrointestinal tract with the good guys, which is a probiotic. And number 4 is alkalize. The most alkaline foods you can take into your body are the vegetables. And of the vegetable kingdom, the most alkaline is greens. So green barley, spirulina. I met a man in America who had cured his cancer by just taking green barley 4 times a day. You see, cancer loves an acid environment. Mold loves an acid environment. And you've got to get the sunshine into your house, get the sunshine into your body, on your body. And number 5 is ormus. You put this into the web, you'll get a whole spiel on it. It's orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. So it's a mineral supplement, and they're minerals in a monoatomic form. And this monoatomic form, research in America is showing it can heal DNA damage. So here we are, healing the DNA damage. In my book, I have a chapter on genetics, and the last page of that chapter, I explain the ormus. But basically, it's a mineral supplement. It's been dropped out of seawater, and it's minerals in a monoatomic form, healing the DNA damage. The human body will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. And these are the conditions that the body needs to be able to get rid of any build-up yeast or fungus that may be in the body. We've had some very remarkable turnarounds from cancer at our health retreat. We had one man come, I think it was 2 years ago now. He was Lebanese. He and his family own a huge strawberry farm in Melbourne, right down the bottom of Australia. He did not really want to come to our health retreat, but his wife and his daughter were very keen. His daughter was about 30. So he did the whole program, and we did some specific treatments helping to alkalize, gave him the herbs. He heard all the lectures and he sort of half listened. And then he went home and he rang me up 4 months later, very excited. He had prostate cancer. He said, "I've just been to the doctor and tested and I'm clear." Now he's interested. He was very blessed to have a wife and a daughter, because when he went home, they just did it. They made the food. I know what my husband's like. He's so busy all day that whatever I give him, he'll eat. Maybe not too much garlic. So that's why it's good to win over the cook in the home. And I do know some men cook, but my husband's not interested at all in cooking. But I don't mind, because I love cooking. When you give the body the right conditions, healing takes place. That's the good news. I believe God meant it to be simple, and I'm so glad it is simple. So how do we heal from irritable bowel syndrome? Number one, stop. Stop the foods that irritate the lining of the gut. What are the foods that do that? Caffeine, refined sugar, the hybridized wheat, dairy. If you were to feed the milk in the supermarket to a newborn calf, the calf would die. Number one, stop all the things that can irritate that lining. Number two, take a probiotic. What's a probiotic? A Lactobacillus acidophilus bifidus bacterium supplement. Do you know they are the two permanent bacteria that live in your gut? All the others come from those two. Number three, there are two herbs that coat, soothe and heal the lining of the gut, and they're both a bit slimy because the lining of the gut is sliming. I think we all know aloe vera, and aloe vera has a growth stimulant. It stimulates rapid healing in the lining of the gut. The other herb, when you put water with it, it just goes a bit slippery. It's called slippery elm, and slippery elm coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gut. Let me give you a story of a lady that came to this lecture in New Zealand when I was there about 18 months ago. She said, I'm 70, I've had irritable bowel syndrome for 30 years. She's been on cortisones, anti-inflammatories. She said, the things that you have told me tonight, no one has ever told me. She said, no one ever told me that these foods were irritating my gut. That was Tuesday night. She went home, she immediately implemented everything she'd heard. Thursday night, what's that? 2 days, 2 nights. Thursday night she came up to me and she said, I've stopped bleeding from the colon. She said, I have no more pain. She said, instead of going 6 times a day, she said, today I went 3 times. Is she healed? No, but she's on the road.
When you cook the tomato with an oil, and I think you'll agree with me, olive oil and tomatoes go very nice. They almost hand in hand together. And you look at Lebanese food, Italian food, there's a lot of tomato and olive oil cooking. When it's cooked with an oil, it releases a plant chemical called lycopene. Lycopene is from the fat-soluble family, and that's another reason why we should be eating a little oil with our meals, because it helps release the fat-soluble vitamins. Lycopene is a potent antioxidant, and it has the ability to reduce the inflammation of the prostate gland, so that's good news, isn't it? So every man over the age of 40 should be having a cooked tomato and olive oil dish maybe 3 or 4 times a week. That's not hard. Lovely base for your chickpeas. Castor oil is a very thick, gooey oil, and I don't suggest you take castor oil by mouth. Castor oil, I think, should only be used on the outside. Castor oil can penetrate deeper than any other oil, and wherever castor oil is applied, it penetrates very deep into the body. No other oil will do that. And wherever castor oil penetrates, it breaks up lumps, bumps, adhesions. It'll break down a bone spur. Now what you do, this is a compress, not a poultice, and as a compress, you make a thick compress so that it can hold that castor oil. And you can keep reusing the compress because it's not drawing anything into it. The thicker your compress, the more castor oil it can hold, and then the more castor oil is available to go into you. At first, I would put about that much castor oil on, and then I would just sit it for a while. It takes about half an hour to soak right in. And as soon as it's placed on the body heat will warm that oil and it'll spread out. So a lot of people say to me, I eat garlic all the time, and that's great. I think we all eat garlic all the time. But if you want to use it as an antibiotic, 4 raw cloves a day. Not everyone can take that, and if you can't take it, maybe you look at an alternative like your olive leaf extract, which is another excellent antibiotic. So what would you do for a baby? For a baby, you could slice up the onion very finely and put it in a little cloth and bind it to the bottom of their feet. And I have done this quite a lot to my little ones, which are not little ones any longer, when they were little, and my daughters do it to their children. So you get a little cloth like this and a couple of slices of very finely sliced garlic, and let's just pretend that my hand is the little foot, and you would bind it to the bottom of the foot. And then you put the bootie on. Or if it's a toddler, then you put the shoe and sock on. It takes 1 minute for 1 drop of blood to go around the whole body. And in about 2 minutes, you can smell it on their breath. The slicing is the best because the juices release little by little. If you were to put slices of garlic straight onto the feet, it would blister the feet. And that's why the cloth, even though the juice comes through the cloth, it acts as a little bit of a protection. But that is a very old remedy for whooping cough. What happens? Well, as soon as the garlic juice goes into the bloodstream, the body takes it where it needs it. And if there's a congested chest, it'll take it there. And it actually has the ability to loosen up a congested chest. Coconut oil. Now, we've been told, stop the coconut oil, it's a saturated fat, it'll give you heart disease. Is that right? Does the Bible talk about coconut oil? No, it doesn't, because no coconuts were grown where the Bible was written. But the Bible talks about olive oil. So what does the Bible say about olive oil? It's good. In fact, there's a lovely story about Elijah in the time of no rain, and God said, go to the widow, she'll feed you for 3 years. And Elijah said to the widow, make me bread. And the widow said, this is the last meal and the last oil, then my son and I die. And there's that beautiful saying where Elijah said, do not fear, God has said, in the time of no rain, the meal will not lack and the oil will not fail. Every morning the widow came out and there was a bit more flour in her barrel. There was a little bit more oil in her cruse to make her unleavened bread. Who put the oil in her cruse? God did. What has God just said about olive oil? It's good. I can testify, it is very good. So the Bible says yes on oil. Now, I'm sure God didn't put 2 cups of oil in her cruse every night. It's a very concentrated food. There's only a little bit. And we can hypothesize about how much was there. But as a cook who cooks unleavened bread and pastries sometimes, I think it would be at the very most maybe 1/4 cup. History. Let's go to the South Pacific Islands, who've been eating coconut oil for centuries. And when Captain Cook landed on the South Pacific Islands, he was confronted with the most magnificent specimens of humanity he had seen. The men were strong, tall, agile. Weston Price, he went through the islands in, I think it was the turn of the century, last century, going into the 1900s, and took photos of their teeth. Perfect. No crowding, no alignment, perfect jaws, because there were no chemicals on those islands. They were eating food in its natural state. And by the way, the women were beautiful. What did they eat every meal? Coconut. I used to go to the South Pacific Islands every year till COVID hit, but I was very excited to see I'm going there again in December. Coconut. Every meal we eat, there's coconut. Maybe it's grated, maybe it's the cream, maybe it's the milk, maybe it's the oil, every meal. And the white man said, stop eating the coconut, it'll give you heart disease, it'll give you strokes, diabetes, cancer. And the island people said, what's that? But they listened because white man brought some incredible reforms. They don't eat each other anymore. But history tells us that the coconut oil certainly for thousands of years didn't cause heart disease. What about the science? Dr. Bruce Fife, he's written many books on the coconut oil. And he shows that the coconut oil is unique because the breakdown begins in the mouth. Every other oil, the breakdown begins under the action of bile and pancreatic lipase. It's an incredible oil. The body can use it so easily. So when common sense considers what the Bible says on oil, what history says on oil, what science says on oil, what does common sense declare? Oil is good. Yes, it's concentrated. We're not going to drink a cup of oil a day. I don't know about you, but I find that a bit hard. But when I open my baked potato, I have to tell you I love some olive oil and salt in that. And yet how often have we been told salt and oil is bad? Okay, let's put salt through this. Does the Bible talk about salt? Absolutely. Matthew 5 verse 13, the Bible says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." How does the salt lose its savour? Well, the table salt that you buy has 2 minerals. Seawater has 92. Where'd the rest go? You see, we should be taking salt the way God made it, with all of its minerals. That's what the Bible says. History, people have been eating salt for decades. And yet in many countries it was a hand-harvested salt, which meant it had all the minerals in it. And I can tell you the science on it, on a nutritionist, that our body needs those minerals. Minerals are absolutely vital. Our bones are made of minerals. Our blood, our tissues, everything's made of minerals. So we need minerals. Now common sense declares, well, that sounds right. So it is not hard, really, to determine truth. Let's move on with our laws. Moderation. We can be eating the best food on the planet, but if we overdo it, it can turn to poison in our gut. Sun's great, but if you overdo it, you'll get burnt. Dr. Christopher in America, he said, there is a sign to see if you're drinking too much water. Put your head on the side and it'll come out your ears. In other words, it's pretty hard to overdo water. And most people don't overdo the water, or they're visiting the little house all day. Oh, that's very Australian. You say the bathroom, yeah? Can you overdo sleep? Yeah, we've got work to do. We've got 24 hours in a day. 8 to sleep, 8 to work, 8 to play. Doesn't that sound nice? There's a balance. I don't think you can overdo your trust in God, but you can certainly overdo worry. You can certainly overdo breath by breathing through your mouth. Food needs to be taken in moderation. And the last is exercise. When we exercise, we increase the circulation of the blood to the brain. As a homeschooling mother, if I saw any of my kids struggling with school, I'd call a break. Time to jump on the trampoline, get on the bike and go around the house 5 times, skipping rope, whatever. When they came back in 10 minutes later, wow, they could just solve the problem like that. Because that exercise had given powerful amounts of oxygen into the brain. So this is how I can sustain my prefrontal cortex, is these physical laws. Remember, the easiest way to bring that brain down is through the body. And there is a way you can rewire your brain. And I have found some people, so I'm going to come right in at trusting God. For some people, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust is pulling them down. And the little book over there called Ministry of Healing, that statement is found in the chapter on the mind. There's a very good chapter on the mind in that book. She says grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust all break down the life forces and can invite decay and death into the body. Whoa, they're strong words. Dr. Carolyn Leaf is a modern Christian psychoanalyst, and she shows the research that proves that statement. She said when we entertain or cherish negativity, thorns grow between the dendrites. These are physical thorns. Science now shows that when we entertain or cherish negativity, what's entertain? Come right in. Actually, stay the night. Stay forever. What's cherish? Love. When we entertain or cherish negativity, thorns start to grow in the dendrites. I'm sure we've all met people, everything's terrible. Oh no, it's raining. The next person says, praise God, it's raining, my plants need it. Oh no, it's sunshine. It's all the way you see it. Is the cup half full or half empty? And it's our choice how we see it. We have more say over what we think than we think we do. And one way to get an edge, to control, I call it a wild horse, these thoughts, feelings, emotions. And God gave us a bridle, whoa up, whoa up. That's our prefrontal cortex. And if you are adhering to the Sustain Me principles, that strengthens the prefrontal cortex. And on top of that, the most powerful strength we get is submitting our prefrontal cortex and letting God come in and give us that extra power we need. That's how it all works. But when we entertain or cherish negativity, when we allow these negative thoughts to come into our mind, notice what I said, allow, because we can reject them. They take root. It's a very simple thing that you can do to help that waste come out and be eliminated. It's called oil pulling. Oil pulling has been known for centuries all through Europe. I myself have only known about it for about 10 years. What is oil pulling? It's putting a spoonful, if you're not used to it, start with a teaspoon, putting a small spoonful of oil, I prefer coconut oil, in the mouth and then swishing. So swish, swish, swish all around the mouth, and you may do it for 10 minutes. You might swish for 30 seconds and rest for 30 seconds, something like that. Now, at the moment, our coconut oil is clear because it is so hot. In the winter, it's solid, then it's quite white. But when it is liquid, it is clear. And I say to our guests, when you spit the coconut oil out on the grass, please not down the sink because it could go solid and clog up our drains. Spit it out on the grass. As you spit it out, you will see it is no longer clear. It is white, indicating the change that has taken place as the waste is pulled out of your tongue, as the waste is pulled out of the glands under your tongue, as the waste is pulled out of the blood vessels under your tongue, and this is everything that oil pulling does. So it's called oil pulling because you're using oil, and as you swish, it pulls out waste from your tongue and from under your tongue. I've also known people to conquer gingivitis, that's sore gums, bleeding gums, by oil pulling every day. I suggest that our guests on the detox program oil pull maybe about 3 times a day, especially on the juicing days. You get better at it. One lady said she started to oil pull and after a minute she couldn't bear it anymore. I said, that's all right, spit it out. Next time you do it, if you go 1.5 minutes, you'll be doing well. I'm so used to it now. I oil pull every morning. I need to do this little detox because I travel such a lot and I'm in planes such a lot, and I find it a very effective way at doing a very simple and a very easy detox. Some people prefer olive oil, some people prefer sesame oil. Myself, I prefer coconut oil. One of the reasons I like coconut oil is because underneath the tongue there are sublingual glands which release lingual lipase. And when that lingual lipase connects with the coconut oil, it causes a release of antibacterial properties. So that's another reason why your coconut oil is so good at the oil pulling. So be mindful of your organs of elimination. Give them the right conditions so that they can effectively detoxify you, for we are all subject to environmental poisons. Welcome back to a very important part of our presentation. In fact, we've saved the best till last. Now, this is a very intense treatment. It takes a fair bit of equipment. It takes 2 trained therapists to apply it. But you know what? Cancer is a serious condition. And so to conquer cancer, you need to take some serious steps. So this might seem like a bit of work, but the beauty of this cancer treatment is there are no side effects. Your hair won't fall out and your fingernails won't go black. And it is being filmed, and it was very difficult for me to get this treatment, and I am happy to share it because it is not mine to keep.
And we have seen some incredible turnarounds with doing this treatment. Now, Joshua has agreed for me to wrap him, even after doing those compresses on his chest yesterday. And while he's wrapped up in the wrap, I will be able to talk a little bit more about it. There are times in the demonstration of this treatment where I'm going to have to move very fast, and there are times when we can slow down. And if I'm unable to explain everything as we go, I definitely, while Josh was wrapped up, can enhance on it there, and we can also take questions. Now, the recipe is 2 kilos of sodium bicarbonate. And it's about 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice, and 5 litres of boiling water. It must be boiling because it cools so quickly. And you will see how I apply this treatment that we are not going to burn Joshua. So I don't know if you can see, you might like to stand up or come a little bit closer, but I'm going to mix this now. I've got the 2 kilos of sodium bicarb in the water, in the bucket, and it's just sodium bicarbonate that you buy from the supermarket. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put 1 litre into the bucket. And I'm going to stir it. Anyone who wants to sit on the front row, you can just chuck all that stuff in that basket there. And then we're going to put the lemon juice in. And when you put the lemon juice in, it speeds it up a little bit more. And then we're going to put the rest in. Don't put it all in at once because it might foam right up. There it comes. This is a great treatment to do on this cold, windy day. So I mix it a bit more, and then I put see what happens when you put it in too fast? Settle down, mix. There we are, it's settling down now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my first towel in. And the best way to fold them is like this, and you'll see why. So you dip it in and you swish it around a bit. So you've got a good mix, and then you squeeze it. Now you don't want just your average gloves for this because it's boiling water. My husband is my mighty defender and he found lawyers that were willing to come, and at the last minute they opted out. And the girl who sat in as our lawyer, I had never met. She was about 35, but she did tell us that she'd been through many tribunals like this before. I had her to my right and I had Michael to my left, and across me on the long table to the right was the head of the Healthcare Complaints Commission. Then there were 2 lawyers. They were both female lawyers, probably about 40 years of age. The Healthcare Complaints Commission guy was, I don't know, early 50s, maybe late 40s. And then there was another guy to my left who was again in about his 50s, and he was the recorder. So that was the situation that I sat down in. And when I sat down, in front of me was a file easily 2.5 inches thick on me. And everyone had that file in front of them. There was a screen up to my right where at any point they could bring up anything that I had said on my
on my lectures. It could have possibly been a terrifying thing to sit in, but I have great faith in God, and I know that He will not put me through anything that I can't cope with. And I also had the confidence that I have done nothing wrong. And when you have that confidence, it's not that scary.
So there was no other medical experts that could verify that any of the accusations were actually scientifically accurate at the tribunal?
No, there were none.
So what was the ending conclusion then of everything?
They questioned me for 2 hours, and I know that they questioned me only on the points of controversy. And one of the biggest points of controversy is the sodium bicarbonate wraps. And these are wraps that a Canadian doctor gave me many years ago now, and we've incorporated it as part of a program that people give themselves to conquer cancer in their body. And we have found, as part of a program, we have had great success. In fact, we have had people who have been able to heal from their cancer. So we knew that they would target this one. So they brought up on the screen me standing there, and I was speaking, and I had just finished demonstrating the sodium bicarbonate wraps. Now, I don't usually demonstrate them, but I was in New Zealand, and a New Zealand doctor requested that I demonstrate them. And so I did demonstrate it. He had it filmed, and he put it up on YouTube, and I was unaware of this. And it wasn't for about a year later, a lady told me she'd been doing the sodium bicarb wraps. I said, how do you know how to do them? She said, well, you've got it demoed on YouTube. I said, have I? I did not even know it was up there. So let's go back to the tribunal. They bring it up, and I'm standing there and I'm speaking, and there was a question from the floor. Can you do this wrap if you're also doing chemotherapy? And my answer was this: it's like cutting the arm and putting a Band-Aid on it, cutting the arm and putting a Band-Aid on it. These two systems really war against each other, and they turned it off. And when they turned it off, I internally breathed a huge sigh of relief and thought to myself, is that all they've got? And I looked at him because I thought, now what is he going to say to me? And he said, why did you put that up on YouTube? I said, I didn't. He said, who did? I said, I don't know. I presume the people had filmed it. He said, why did you have it filmed? I said, I didn't choose to have it filmed. It was requested that I demo, and I guess they filmed it. Who requested that you filmed it? So can you see he's getting strong with me? And I said, a doctor. He said, what was the doctor's name? I said, I cannot tell you. And he said, are you refusing to answer the question? He was very strong. I was taken back by this, and at the same time, my husband's kneeing me under the table. I looked at the lawyer. She said, call a break. So we called a break, and they walked out. I said, have I blown it? What have I done? And my husband was not happy that I'd quoted this doctor, so that's the only time I actually felt a little upset. And the lawyer said to me, you have to answer the question or you will be charged. I said, okay. So they brought it back in. They started the tape up again, and the health of the for the Health Care Complaints Commission, as soon as the tape was on, he looked at me, he pointed at me and said, what was the doctor's name? I said, Dr. Thomas. He said, what's his surname? I said, I don't know. It's an Indian name, and I can't pronounce it, and all of his patients call him Dr. Thomas. Where is he working? I said, New Zealand. And they just dropped it like that because they have no jurisdiction over New Zealand. Wow. Now, if it had been Australia, I think that poor doctor would have come under investigation as well. So that was probably the most difficult spot of the whole interlude, and yet I don't really think that is that difficult. And I'd like to relate one other incident, which I thought was a little strange, but this was the only other one they made quite a big deal of. And it was a lady who had conquered her cancer by doing everything at Misty Mountain. And she rang me up and she said, "Barbara, I have a letter there and I don't understand it. Could you read it to me?" I read it and I said, "Elaine, this letter says that you are cancer-free." But you know, it was in such technical terms, she couldn't understand it. And I must have related this in a lecture that had been videoed because they brought me to task on it. And the man said to me, "Why did you read that letter?" I said, "The lady asked me." Because he said, "Only a doctor can read it." I said, "She asked me to." He said, "How do you know what the words meant?" And I said, "I'm a nurse. You learn the words. I'm a natural therapist. You learn those words." He said, "What were the words?" I said, "I can't remember. It was 3 years ago." And that was the end of that dialogue. I personally thought that was a bit silly.
That you shouldn't be able to read the document and not understand the words.
These guys have got nothing on me, if that's all they can come up with.
And so the conclusion of the matter, it sounds like there were no fines, no convictions, no trial in a public court of law, but still banned for life. Tell us a little bit about when you received that news.
Well, at the end of the tribunal, going back a little bit, which went for 2 hours, and one might say, what happened in the 2 hours? They asked me questions on what I presented, and I also talked about how I'd become a Christian with the Seventh-day Adventist and how they had a health message, and Ellen White had greatly impacted me with the 8 laws of health. So I talked about such things. But when it was over, Michael and the lawyer and I were sitting there, and the lawyer said to me, "I can't believe this." She said, "They've got nothing on you." Now, this is the lawyer who sat through similar tribunals again and again and again. She said, "They've got nothing on you." So my husband said, "Does that mean she'll be free? The ban will be lifted?" The lawyer said, "Oh, no, she'll get a life ban, but she won't be put into jail, because if she was guilty, she'd go to jail." That really challenged us. And so this was June 2019. It must have been July 2019. I was in Fiji at the time teaching at a training school and health retreat. It was on one of the main Fijian islands. And I got the email that I had received a life ban, and they had 17 pages of accusations against me. I cried. In fact, I sobbed. I sobbed for 15 minutes. I was by myself, which I was glad of the luxury of being able to grieve. And after 15 minutes, I stopped, I dried my eyes, and I said, "Well, Father in heaven, what plan do you have for me now?" Because my life is His. When I got home, my husband said, "Well, my dear, you have a choice. You can retire, or you can just work overseas." And I said to him, Now we're going to do the arms. And before I do the arms, I'm just going to explain to Joshua, your arm will come up like that, and I'll wrap the arm. And then I'll get Joshua to put his shoulder up, and I'm going to poke the hot towel down under him, and then he'll come back. Because at the moment, his torso is covered with the hot towel up to about here. So with this towel, I can put one corner down and take up the rest of his shoulder. Now when you're doing a wrap on a lady with breast cancer, one corner will go up there and the other corner will go in and over, so she's well covered there. We get nice and warm during this treatment too. Now what I usually do, this looks like a sad old towel, but it's the best.
I let the towel just sit there, that'll stay warm. And if you put your hand out straight and you tell me, too hot, just do a little dance and try again. You can't heat it up, but you can cool it down.
Yes.
It's fine, okay? Amen. Okay, arm down. And now shoulder up. Yep, right up. Now you tell me, how's that?
Yes.
That's fine. And pull this up and down. Right, up and around. Good, good, good. Down. That's right. And then this can go on the chest. And again, you must never let any of the... Can you do that, Mother? Make sure you can't have any towel.
Yep.
No towel exposed. Any towel exposed, the air will get to it and it'll get cold. Now, no one likes wool on their face, so we sort of pull this back a bit. Must keep the patient happy. So now we do our last one, and I might have to have my back to you while I do this. You swish everyone around so you get as much sodium bicarb in the towel as possible. Sorry, I'm going to have to go here. Now this last one, it usually not as hot. Okay, arm up, and you tell me.
Too hot.
Too hot. Bit more of a dance.
Yes.
That's fine. Make sure it's wrapped right around the arm. At this point, I get these off. And we can put that right under there. This goes right under. Okay, down. And then this one goes right down the front. And then this blanket goes over, and then we get the other blanket. I'll put this one first, then that one at the top. And usually put a hand towel underneath, so put your head up, so that it's not nice, the prickly wool. So you can just put a little towel there to protect against the wool. And you want to make sure the person doesn't feel like all this is going to fall on top of them. And this is a microfiber cloth, and they're really good at keeping the heat in, but it would be no good against the wet, because as soon as that gets wet, it chills. Are you warm? He's warm. Now for someone who can't hold their heat well, I'll put a big doona on top. No more blankets, those lovely woolen blankets that might feel like they're crushing him. And then I always pray. So we're going to pray, we're going to pretend, and Joshua doesn't, but we're going to pretend that Joshua might have a form of cancer. Father in heaven, thank you so much for Joshua. Thank you so much for bringing him here. Thank you for the knowledge of the bicarb wraps. I pray your healing power will go through this treatment and make it impossible for cancer to survive. And I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Do you know, even people who don't believe in God are very happy for me to pray for them. Number 3, Australia sells a cream called the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. And the Anna's Wild Yam Cream contains diosgenin. So here's diosgenin over here. Let's show what happens. When a woman applies, or a man, the Anna's Wild Yam Cream to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates the body, the pathway that the body uses to make its own progesterone. So what this Anna's Wild Yam Cream does, it stimulates the body
to increase its progesterone production. And if you increase progesterone and your estrogen's high, it'll bring it down. And if you increase progesterone and your estrogen's too low, it'll bring it up. And if you're
Castor oil is having a cauliflower moment. Everyone's talking about the benefits and the different uses of castor oil. I can tell you what I've been using it for just in the past week and have already noticed a significant difference. First, you have to make sure the castor oil that you get is organic, cold pressed, hexane free, and preferably in a glass bottle. For the past week, I've been using it every single day on my dark under eye circles, my eyelashes, and I've been hitting it on some of my dark spots that I have on my face. Castor oil contains 90% ricinoleic acid, which is an anti-inflammatory. And by increasing blood circulation, it stimulates healing tissue and reducing discoloration. So the way that I've been using it, I've actually just been putting a couple of drops on my fingertips, on clean hands and a clean face, and I will add it to my under eye dark circles. I'll dab it onto a few of the dark circles I have, and then I'll also put some onto my eyelashes, right to the bed of the eyelashes. And it has already shown improvement. Let me know if you try it and what you're using it for.
If you get nauseous every single time you eat, or if you get tired after you eat, this video is for you. My name is Leslie and I'm a master herbalist. I help people find well-being and harmony by using the plants and the things that Mother Nature gives us. First, I'd like to say, go to your doctor, get checked out, do all those things, and then when they tell you nothing's wrong, or they give you an answer that is not bringing you anywhere, then you come back. But gut health has not been given to us with the importance that it should. If your stomach is out of balance, everything can be out of balance. So what do? There's 1,000 things you can do. You can fast, you can go vegan, you can go carnivore, you can, whatever you want to do, just taking action to healing your gut is gonna help. I personally offer a very simple solution that I have helped thousands of people with, and it's called fire cider. It's apple cider vinegar. It has garlic, onion, ginger, turmeric, rosemary, and thyme. You take 1 teaspoon a day. This is gonna help with inflammation. It's gonna help boost your immune system because of the garlic and the onion. And it's gonna help clear excess mucus out of the body. Mucus is good, but not an excessive amount. It kind of tastes like pickle juice or Italian dressing, so that's not that bad. If you have tried everything and you are stuck at home with a really not so great sense of well-being, give this a try. It is so good for you. It's gonna help with so many different things. And this is giving your body love, giving back to your body these nutrients. You're gonna feel so good.
No one can live without a routine. You just forget that. If you guys don't have a routine, I would recommend, you get one going, because you cannot be mentally healthy without a routine. You need to pick a time to get up. Whatever time you want, but pick one and stick to it, because otherwise you dysregulate your circadian rhythms and they regulate your mood.
Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. How a very small set of people control 8 billion people. This is what I call the elite. Let's say there's about 10,000 of them. How is it these people are able to manipulate the 8 billion people here? If you talk to a lot of naive people, they think, oh, it's the Rothschilds over here, or it's the aliens. They don't understand. It's not any one individual. It's not any one organization. There's something called swarm intelligence. If you watch all those birds flying together, not any one of them is in control. They move together as a unit. They're closely knit. They're quote unquote telepathic, but they move with a singular goal. The goal of the elites here is power, profit, and control. This is the goal. So if we look at it from a control system, what are the inputs they're sending into this system to achieve their goals? And what is the output that they seek? So if you're an elite over here and you're looking at those 8 billion people, how do you know you're achieving your goal? Are people getting fat, meaning unhealthy? Are people getting dumb, which means ignorant? Are people happy, which means are they being entertained? Are people divided? Are they isolated, disconnected? They don't want people here connecting with each other. Are people feeling helpless? Are people looking to the elites to save them? And they like that. They like when people here are looking to them, the enemy here, for their saviors. They really love that. They want people to be disorganized, and they definitely want people to be helpless. This is what they want. If you do not want to unite among people here and find who your own leaders are from below, they are quite happy. They're achieving their goal: power, profit, and control. Now, how do they do this? You're going to realize it's not any one group. It's an interconnected, tightly knit group. They're all closely interconnected. In fact, they all go to the same restaurants. They have all their kids going to the same equestrian shows. They all shop at the same place. They all go to the same parties. You're not part of that. So who are these people? And what are the institutions of power that they have? Well, first of all, they have academia: Harvard, Oxford, Yale, MIT, IIT in India, the top 100 university presidents. These people are on boards of companies, but it's about 100 people who run the major universities in the world. NGOs, or nonprofits. These are people who run these huge nonprofit organizations like the Clinton Global Initiative, WEF, World Economic Forum, Center for Foreign Relations. And there's many other institutions like these, but it's the CEOs of these institutions. And these guys know each other. They definitely work together. The next thing you have is you have government, US senators, prime ministers of countries, advisors to government, think tanks, the Belfer School at Harvard, the Stanford Internet Observatory. They created the censorship infrastructure. This includes CIA, right? Intelligence organizations. And again, all these people know each other. They're interconnected. They're a swarm. They're tightly knit. They're not divided like these people over here. They're not disconnected. They're highly interconnected. So these people are focused on power. But then you also have a whole nother people, the CEOs of the global 2,000 companies, other big organizations like big pharma companies, Pfizer, big agriculture companies like Syngenta, big investment companies, JP Morgan. You put Deutsche Bank here. You put Epstein down here. Okay, he was involved in all this. You also have the Fed, the central banks. All these people party together. When I say party together, I mean literally they party together, guys. Absolute close-knit friends. And in fact, the CEO of a global 2,000 company will easily move to one of the investment companies down here. If you look at Target, big companies like Anheuser-Busch and Exxon, you'll find that at one point they were in one of these investment companies, and these investment companies sit on the board of these companies, and they shuffle back and forth. So this is all about making money, right? These people are about making the dollar. These people are all about power. This is profit. And then fundamentally, you have control. Hollywood over here. This includes celebrities. You have their agents, Hollywood agents, like Ari Emanuel, as I've talked about, who's a guy who controls most of Hollywood. He controls Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the MMA, etc. The media companies. This includes Disney, Viacom. This includes now Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. These are large media companies. Google, you can put in there also. You also have big news stations, CNN, Fox. And combined with this, now we have another group, social media influencers. This is like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, these characters who have come in, but they do not exist without support from these guys. If you notice, overnight, a bunch of social media influencers have come out of nowhere. And these people are created by these people. So when you look at this, the academics, the NGOs, the government, the think tanks, the investment companies, the Fed, the big pharma, the CEOs, the Hollywood celebrities, media, social media influencers, and the news companies, and you can even take the top 10 of each one of these, they all know each other, everyone. And in order to manipulate these people, they need front men to manipulate these people with policies. Because what comes out are policies. These are the inputs they put into the system, propaganda. They feed these people purposely, people who they tell them are going to save them, like the Elon Musks or Trump or the Kennedys. Now, who are the people part of the swarm that does that? They have the obvious establishment. And these people are like the Clintons or the McConnells or the Obamas or the Bushes or the Queen of England. Typically people say, oh yeah, those guys are part of the establishment. But one of the things we teach at Truth Freedom Health, the most insidious people are what I call the not so obvious establishment. These are the people that are created to make sure that the 8 billion people look to the elites to save them. Trump, he's got a golden toilet. Mar-a-Lago, Kennedy's, completely bogus family. You can look at historically people like Gandhi or people like MLK. These people all came and were endorsed by the swarm. These people do not exist. They live in Malibu. They live in the places of the elites. And these people are the ones that are used to send the inputs of this controller. In system science, these are the controllers. These are the people controlling the inputs that go in. And remember, their goal is to make sure people are in the state of division, disconnection, and helplessness, particularly. They're observing all this. They have their sensors. And one of the features that they notice is that as long long as people are in dysfunction and diseased mentally, physically, emotionally, they're happy. Well, what are those diseases these days? We see obesity. We see endocrine disruption, men with low testosterone and people questioning their sexuality. We also see people with cancer. The world's population's life expectancy is going down. The United States is going this way, and this is from 1980 to 2020. They like this. This is life expectancy. In fact, when they see dysfunction, you know what they do? They put another input in, which is normalize the dysfunction. Eat sugars and high fructose food. Well, over here, people have been literally getting fat. It's led to obesity. Or they've been putting in foods that are affecting people's gut microbiome. This is what I call from policy to biology. People are getting worse and worse. They're actually making more money because the obesity now creates obesity drugs. The endocrine disruptors, let's talk about this. This will really explain what's going on with Bud Light. About 20 years ago, there was research done at the universities that clearly showed the use of restricted use pesticides like atrazine and other chemicals in the atmosphere actually cause endocrine disruption, which could reduce male testosterone, which could also affect mammals where the sex organs can change. And this was done by the work of Tyrone Hayes. So if you're over here at a university and you find out one of your researchers discovered that, and you are playing golf with people over here at Syngenta is the one who produced atrazine, they're going to say, hey man, we don't want this research coming out, because you have to understand something. The investment community here is investing in all of these companies. So if you're one of these large investment companies, you're moving trillions of dollars. $600 trillion, by the way, move through the economy every day. You as one of the elites managers of money, you're moving all this money. You know all of these people. You know the CEO of Target, you know the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, you know the CEO of Pfizer and Syngenta. And imagine that you see, wow, the stuff that we've been creating is causing sexual disruption changes. You're seeing a phenomenon where more and more people are questioning their sexuality. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the general public doesn't understand this, because if they did, they would awaken to something that's going on from the decisions you made. So you call up your friend at Bud Light, he goes, hey, look, let's run a campaign. Let's normalize trans. Let's exploit a willing person to be exploited like this Dylan Mulvaney. Let's put them on as a poster boy for Bud Light, and let's push them out there because we want the attention to normalize a dysfunction, because the goal is to make sure they don't lose their trillions over in Syngenta. They're willing to take $1 billion hit over here, but they want to save their trillions in big pharma and big ag, because they're all part of the same family. They all do favors for each other. And then again, you would go do it at Target. You try to normalize it because you don't want people over here to understand the bigger picture. But you are interconnected. You could strike deals left and right. Let's do a marketing campaign in here. Let's normalize. Same thing if you can look at what's going on in obesity. All these pharma companies are making big money from obesity drugs, but there's movies on Netflix and Amazon promoting fat people as a norm. What's happening over here, you have people who are pro-fat and people who are anti-fat people. You have people who are pro-woke and anti-woke, and they don't care. So you have a bunch of these idiots writing books against woke companies and anti-woke companies. You have people creating apps, only shop at anti-woke companies, don't go to woke companies. But you guys understand that these guys don't give a damn? They're making money anyway. The investment bankers are going to make money from woke companies and anti-woke companies. But what's occurring here is people are being divided. These guys are happy because they're inputting policies and propaganda. People here are being divided, and that is the goal, to achieve power, profit, control. So as long as these people work together as a swarm to control the policies and the propaganda, and they provide false heroes, and they're using the Trumps, the Kennedys, and Gaudis, all of them who talk a big game, their goal is to make sure that you never understand this, that you keep thinking, oh, Kennedy's going to solve the problem. Trump is going to solve the problem. They don't want you to be leaders in your own communities. They want you to outsource your future to people like Trump or Kennedy, because they're part of the swarm. And you keep getting more unhealthy, more ignorant, more entertained. But most importantly, you are divided.
This is like part 3 of Rock and Roll Satanic. So, Damon Albarn, the lead singer of Blur, okay, he forms the group Gorillaz, okay, and the first song is called Clint Eastwood. We all know it, right? It's seared into us. It's one of the top 400 pop songs, and we remember the video, okay? I played it in the beginning. So, in the video, Murdoch is the alter ego of Damon. He's wearing the upside-down cross, and Russ is the drummer. So in the video, in the song, the drummer, Russ, is possessed where this giant gorilla comes out of him. Damon Murdoch is wearing the T-virus shirt. Anyhow, so he wears this 7-sided symbol, okay? And there's a guy interviewing him. This is a telling interview, and Damon is playing dumb. So the guy says to him, hey, is that a pentagram? He says, no, it's not a pentagram, and it's not a Star of David. It's a 7. He holds up the metal heptagram. It's a very unusual, beautiful bit of geometry. I got really into it when I was studying Dr. D. He used it as a means of communicating with extraterrestrials. He constructed it, actually. I'll show you. There's like 3 lies in that one sentence. He didn't construct it. It's ancient. It's been around. There's like 5 different meanings for a hectagram, right? You can research it. There's the Babylonian, there's the Kabbalah, there's Dr. D. It just goes on and on. All right, so, and he's not talking to extraterrestrials because there are none. They're from here, okay? So Alburn rises from the table and he leaves the room, calling back from the stairs. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, mate. Hey, I won't do that again. He returns a couple minutes later carrying a silver metal case. He unlocks it and carefully removes an ancient book wrapped in colorful African cotton throw, okay? This is actually one of Dr. D's books. Okay, Dr. D, 450 years ago, he was in the King's Court in England. He was a spy, he was an alchemist, astrologer, all of those things, right? There's a YouTube guy called Mr. Mythos. If you want some super entertaining stuff, check him out. He used to set the geometric 7 as a way of communicating with angels. But it's a meditational thing. It's in here somewhere. So he gives up and he closes the book. I don't need to explain this. You've seen the book. But he used it as a way. You basically create it and then you have different stations where you repeat different kinds of mantras. Then slowly, if you do properly, the portal opens. Speaking of portals, David, do you ever feel that a song comes through you? He says, I tend to sing and just let whatever comes out of my mouth come out. When I do a first take of something, I listen back to it and I say a lot of weird stuff. Really quite strange. But it's allowing yourself to exist on that periphery of sense and subsense. Alright, so, I don't think it's particularly spooky. He's painting it, he's playing the game, man. He's painting it all black and white. Okay, so here's the song. That was the big hit, top 400 pop songs of all time. And this is Damon's demon coming through in the lyrics, giving him his first hit. Quote, finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now time for me is nothing because I'm counting no age. Okay? Damon's timeless. Goes all the way back to the beginning of the recent reset. As time as we know it, okay? Now, I couldn't be there. Now, you shouldn't be scared. I'm good at repairs and I'm under each snare. He's under the snare. You're going for the bait, the lyrics, and he's telling Damon he's under the snare. It's going to catch him, man. It's going to trap him. Intangible, y'all. Bet you didn't think so. I command you to panoramic view you. He enters Damon. And he's got the panoramic view. He's seeing through Damon. Because these disembodied spirits of the giants, right? Because they're of the wrong bloodline, they don't get to go to heaven. They just roam around seeking. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They have all the same feelings that we do and desires. But they're disembodied. So they seek people who have trauma, who have such different situations, and people who straight up ask them to come into them, okay? Look, I'll make it all manageable. Pick and choose, sit and lose, all your different crews, chicks and dudes. Who you think is really kicking tunes? Demon's kicking the tunes, right? The demon that, you know, when Denzel says that he is embodied by something that takes over when he's acting. Some of the most haunted places in the world are theaters. Everyone knows it because of all these actors using these entities. Okay. Picture you getting down in a picture tube. Speaking of Denzel, like you lit the fuse. You think it's fictional, mystical, maybe. Spiritual hero who appears to you out of the clear blue. Okay, so again, you think you got yourself onto the movies? No, the demons did it, okay? The hero, spiritual hero, just like the Bible says. The heroes of old, okay? When you're too crazy, lifeless to those, the definition for what life is, priceless to you because I put you on the hype shift. Brilliant, brilliant. Demon means genius, okay? They're brilliant writers and they're brilliant actors. Seducing stuff, okay? Did you like it? Gut-smoking righteous with one toke, you're psychic among those, possess you with one go. Do the drugs, smoke, open yourself, right? And they'll possess you with one go. All right, I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad. Back into that, make you feel happy again. The essence, the basics without did you make it? Without the demon's essence, did you make it? Without my essence, the demon says, did you make it? Question mark. Allow me to make this childlike in nature. Rhythm, you have it or you don't. That's a fallacy, I'm in them. That's just like crazy, man. This demon's just telling people like, don't even try it. You think you got rhythm? You don't. It's all me. And if you're not going with me, don't bother. That's not true. We all have talent, okay? Talent is passion played out, okay? Passion makes us work, but to us it's not work because it's our passion, all right? That's how you get good at anything. It's been proven. Anybody can do anything if they work at it. And if you have the passion, you don't need... Look, all I'm saying is you don't need a freaking demon. All right. Every sprouting tree, every child of peace, every cloud and sea, you see with your eyes? I see destruction and demise, corruption in the skies. Well, Prince of the Air, corruption in the skies, and all they want is to destroy everything. You, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, they want to destroy, okay? Kill, ruin, right? But at first, they will give you powers. They will give you power. They will give you money. They will give you acting. They will give you, the stock pick. Whatever, man. The crypto pick. They'll give it to you. What do you got to give, though? It's from this fucking enterprise. Now I'm sucked into your lies through Russell. Not his muscles, but percussion he provides for me as a guide. Y'all see me now. Because you don't see with your eye. You perceive with your mind. That's the inner. So I'm gonna stick around with Russ and be a mentor. Bust a few rhymes so motherfuckers remember where the thought is, I brought this. So you can survive when law is lawless. The lawless one. And the lawlessness of the age we're in now. The demon's gonna help him, Damon, survive through all the lawlessness of his life, right? Feeling sensations that you thought was dead. No squealing now. Remember, it's all in your head. Whew. Feeling sensations. So the demon's going to give you heightened feelings in their sex rituals and sex and blood magic and all that stuff. I mean, Chili Peppers thanking Satan literally for the award, naming their album Blood, Sex, Magic. All right, next one, I'm going to do Imagine Dragons and show you the lyrics of their first hits. And Imagine Dragons from the pit. All right, peace, y'all.
Makes you wonder how the other half died. Other half died. Makes you wonder. But here come the man with a look in his eye. It's fair on nothing but full of pride. Look at him go, look at him kick. Makes you wonder how the other half live. Devil inside. but certainly slight. Look at the faces, listen to the bells. It's hard to believe we need a place called hell. Place called hell. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Ooh. A woman with a look in her eye. She's raised on leather, flesh on the mind. Words and weapons, sharper than knives. Makes you wonder how the other half died. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. The devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Oh. The devil inside. Yeah.
The Book of Enoch reveals that the real reason that Yahweh flooded the earth was because humans were becoming too knowledgeable. This is exactly what the Apocalypse of Adam says, another banned book of the Bible, coming first person from Adam. So remember, in the Garden of Eden, in the Sumerian tablets, Yahweh, he translates as Enlil. He created humans as slaves. So when humans become too knowledgeable, they're going to be less obedient, subservient, mindless little slaves. They're going to start catching on and thinking for themselves. And the Watchers, that's exactly what this story is. The Sumerian tablets has the Watchers, Apkulas. In both, that's the problem. They're demonized because they're giving the humans knowledge. Azazel was the head watcher or giant. That translates to scapegoat in Hebrew. Now, I think it's possible Enoch was Azazel. Enoch's telling the story. He was 7th generation of Adam. He was one of the giants that were down here that seemed to lead the group. In the Dead Sea Scrolls Book of Giants, they were all going to him for advice. So he tells the story. These Watchers come down. They teach humanity all this stuff, astrology, blah, blah, which I've talked about with astrology. When the new moon, the crescent moon, was in Pleiades, that marked the beginning of summer. So they all knew what, how to change their crops and what to do. So it was essential information. And it got twisted that they came down and slept with the women and had children with them, but that was not the issue. It was the knowledge. Like, that's what they were doing in Greece. They were there to sleep with the women. Like, Yahweh actually impregnated Eve, and you can find this in the Apocalypse of Adam, and you can find this aligning perfectly in the Sumerian tablets. Another misconception is that they got them pregnant and then the women had Nephilim, which makes no sense. Nephilim were way bigger than them. I don't know how it got so twisted. The Bible specifically says that they were there in those days and before, completely specifying that that's not the case. So this depiction of hell we get, the eternal torture, the eternal suffering, the eternal fire, this comes from Enoch, from these Watchers that are being tortured on the inside of the earth with the flames around. Somebody's given an astral projection tour and sees this and spreads the word. Just like they were given astral projection tours of the inside of Mount Shasta or the Egyptian underworld. And if you're new, these entities are extraterrestrials, and they actually still to this day live in the center of our earth, which every Native American culture, the Buddhist Tibetan monks, the Mayans, occultists, messengers, they'll all tell you about this place by a different name. If you want more info, I'll leave my information, but just strung along TikToks with like evidence at the end in a caption. Enoch was bloodline of Cain. Remember, Cain was half Anunnaki or extraterrestrial, half Atlantean, because Enlil or Yahweh impregnated Eve. So kind of like Gilgamesh was more of a god, part Atlantean, and had the mother of a goddess or Anunnaki. But even like Adam, he was said by Jesus Christ to be born of great wealth and power. So the Atlanteans alone were highly advanced and powerful. There's a book called From Adapa to Enoch, which theorizes ancient Mesopotamian sage, kind of semi-god human, which the sage is the Apkula, the Watchers, is actually Enoch. And remember, Enki, or Osiris later, and Thoth, they were both Apkulas, or Watchers, so very possible and probable that they were down there with Enoch and had wives and all that as well. And remember, Noah is actually Uptapishtima in the Sumerian tablets, and it's a fact that the flood, global flooding, actually happened 12,000 years ago, not 3,000 years ago. I mean, scientific fact, through the blank periods of space from the stars and sun novas, the lakes that drained at 8,000 swimming pools per second from the reversal, the solar glass found all over from the nova, plus all these sunken cities, sunken city at Cuba with the pyramids underneath and the Sphinx that was found, at least 11,000 years old. Ancient underwater ruins of Egypt, at least they said actually 11.5 thousand years old, which that got pulled from the internet, of course. Sunken city of Dwarka, which was just discovered, at least 10,000 years old. So, I mean, it's a fact. This did not happen 3,000 years ago. So, most of these characters are taken from a previous story. So it's probable that he's right, and Enoch is Adapa, though some of these are immortal. Just speaking Adapa's name in exorcism was a conduit to evoke supernatural forces. He was very powerful, like Solomon. He was the priest of the temple of Enki, and Enki, in a lot of scripture, was said to be his father, actually. And there's even a story where he stops the winds of Nibiru, aka the reversal, global flooding, pole shift, in its tracks, specifically saying for 7 days. I don't think he could do that without Enki. Now that we know that the water is going to be circulating the earth for 7 days from the reversal, from the 1,000-mile-per-hour winds, because the earth is going to stop rotating at 1,000 miles per hour. And we find 7 in every single apocalypse prophecy, including the most in Revelations, book of the apocalypse in the Bible. And all I have to say is, if the devil is 6, then God is 7. In the Sumerian tablets, these sages are described as powerful, having power for healing arts, having the power for casting out demons. And guess what? In the Gnostic text, which is the banned books of the Bible, Jesus Christ is referred to as a sage on several occasions. Just like both the Sumerian tablets and the Bible, both referred to as these crafts that descend from the sky and go back into the sky, bringing people up as chariots. A lot of coincidences, especially when the Sumerian tablets were just dug up a couple hundred.
This here represents the surface of life. Surface. And we see surfaces, surfaces. And about 300 years ago, scientists, they started wondering what was this wood, and what was this metal, and what was it really? So they start looking into matter. So this side is matter, and this side is mind. Mind and matter. And the scientists, they discovered molecules. Deeper they went, and they discovered these atoms. And like I say, they thought that was the smallest particle for a long time. All these things we learn about in school. They went deeper, and they find inside the atoms these little electrons and neutrons and protons. And they went deeper and deeper and deeper, smaller and smaller particles, smaller and smaller particles. They found 4 forces. On a deeper level, the 4 became 3. And on a deeper level, the 3 became 2. And then, about 30 years ago, modern science, quantum physics, discovered the unified field. the unity of all the particles and all the forces of matter, of creation. Not only did they discover the unified field, but they found that everything that is a thing emerges from this field of no thing. Unmanifest it is. Unmanifest. It is no hyphen thing, but all things come from it. Anything that is a thing has emerged from this field of unity. It's oneness. The scientists know this exists, but if they wanted to get there, you can't get there. It's unmanifest. You can't walk into this field. But any one of those scientists could practice a technique, transcendental meditation, which, remember, true happiness is not out there. You're given a mantra, a very specific sound, vibration, thought. Very specific. It needs to be life-supporting at all deeper levels. And that mantra that you're given gives the key that opens the door. The mantra turns the mind within, turns the awareness within, and you naturally dive. Why is it natural? Because each deeper level of mind and each deeper level of intellect has more happiness. And the deeper levels of mind and deeper levels of intellect correspond to deeper levels of matter. At the borderline of intellect, you transcend. Transcend is the key word. It means to go beyond. You're going beyond field of relativity, duality, experiencing oneness. Pure, unbounded, infinite consciousness. This consciousness has qualities: infinite creativity, intelligence, energy, love, power, and bliss. Dynamic peace. Always been there, never had a beginning, it is and it will be forever. Unbounded, infinite, eternal, immutable, immortal consciousness, fullness. Any human being can experience this easily and effortlessly with transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation is just a vehicle to get you here. When you experience this level, you enliven it, and it grows in the individual. All positive, light of unity, all positive. You experience this level, and you enliven it, and this ball of consciousness that you thought was just going to stay the same for the rest of your life starts expanding, and these qualities expand.